welcome to this week's Three Legs, Four Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with...
Dan.
Chris.
Oh, and that's it.
Oh, no Lee.
No Lee tonight.
No, unfortunately, Lee can't be with us. He will probably be back with us next week.
We're hoping.
Yeah, but
But we have got Sean Kelly instead.
we have. So, out with one and in with another. Not permanently, of course.
Does that mean we've got somebody that knows what they're talking about this week?
Ooh.
Someone slightly less controversial, shall we say? Actually, no, we won't.
No, probably not.
No.
We'll have to see how that goes. So, yeah, the three of us, joined by Sean a bit later on, but first...
But first, everything happened at once on a Monday from the looks of things.
What's going on?
Nothing's been confirmed before we go any further.
But nothing's been officially denied.
And only when something's been officially denied can you start really...
Believing it.
Yeah.
But it's being mooted, shall we say.
Shall we tell the listeners what has been mooted?
Well, where do we start? Because it's a game of dominoes, essentially, isn't it?
The listeners probably know what's been mooted, and this is probably confirmed news by now. But
Probably.
So
By
you-
the time
you-
they're listening to this, it will be. But it's like I think I've put it on the running order there.
Yeah.
Merry-go-round.
Yes. But in a game of dominoes, you start with the double six. And unfortunately, that's 12, and we've only got 11 points on here. So I'm going to start at number 1.
Fair enough.
McLaren to Renault.
Which we suspected, we spoke about on last week's podcast,
As being the only option.
as being their only option. Ferrari has said no. Mercedes have said no. Renault didn't say no, but they said they can't supply an extra team to the ones they're already supplying, including their works team. So they, basically Honda have to go somewhere else in order for McLaren to become a Renault partner.
so, of the teams that Renault supply, is it going to be Red Bull who get the Honda? Is it going to be Toro Rosso, or is it going to be Renault?
I think it
I
might.
can't see it being Renault, because I think it's in Nico Hulkenberg's contract that he's got to drive a Renault, not a Renault Honda. It's going to be Toro Rosso.
Yeah. So the way this works then is that without getting too convoluted, which is exactly what this is, way too convoluted. Toro Rosso will take on the Honda engine, as we understand it, releasing Renault to go to McLaren. Now McLaren, that should put, if the engines next year as they are this year, that should boost McLaren way up the grid. It should do.
Probably,
At le-
possibly,
midfield.
maybe.
15th.
No, if not a bit, on a bad day probably. They should be higher than that. They should be higher than
If
that.
they're running an identical spec engine to a Red Bull, they need to be up with Red Bull.
They need to have.
As McLaren, you would expect them to be.
Yes.
You'd expect them to be finishing as many races as Verstappen does.
Yes, there is that.
Yes, we didn't write that one down.
No.
Yeah, okay.
But then that goes, Toro Rosso become the Honda.
Team, which gives Red Bull Big Boy team a chance to see what the Honda engine's like, and then when it gets good,
Because, of course, Red Bull Big Boy team have the same issue that McLaren have had all along, which is that
the cars don't finish.
they're not really going to win with a customer engine.
Which is why they're running with Red Bull tag, isn't it, at the moment?
Well, no, that's because of the
That's
big
because
spat
of-
they had with Renault before there was a Renault team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all
Because
Christian
Red-
Horner's fault.
Yeah.
Well, Red Bull were, and it was in their contract that they were the de facto works team for Renault.
Yeah.
That's where the spat came from. That's why it's a Red Bull tag. After they sort of fell out with Renault. Oh, you're not as performy as you used to be.
We're not the best, so we're sulking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much, yeah.
So that means that Red Bull are going to be using Toro Rosso for what Toro Rosso are meant to be, which is
A test bed.
a test bed and development centre
Yeah,
for the big boys.
absolutely. So, yeah, so McLaren get Renault and Toro Rosso get Honda. Now, is that it for engine changes?
Yes.
So then it comes onto because there are driver deals linked in with this engine swap.
Yes.
Of course, just to reiterate, none of which are confirmed at the time of recording.
What we've pieced together
As
based
Dan
on
has a quick look at his phone.
half past 10 on Monday, the 11th of September. Sainz to Renault.
Which is the bigger and more likely story to come out so far.
That will be the first one. Now,
Sainz to Renault,
when? That's a good question because
It's compensation, isn't it, for the deal in order to swap to McLaren?
well, Red Bull Group, Helmut Marko said that Sainz was worth $8 million, and that was his release fee. Now, are Renault going to be paying that in cash, or are Renault going to be giving an $8 million discount to Red Bull,
to the big team.
to the Red Bull GmbH,
Yeah.
Marko Limited,
Well, it's Dietrich Mateschitz, isn't it?
Dietrich Mateschitz company.
Mateschitz has got the company, but Helmut Marko runs the Red Bull Racing.
Yep, keeps an eye on both teams.
Ooh. Well, with Lee not being here, someone had to say it. But the
When it came to drawing short straws, that's the one I'd get.
ooh,
Shall I stop now?
yeah, I think so.
I've stopped now. So, yes, Sainz to
Sainz to
Renault,
Renault.
but rumours are flying round that it could be from as soon as Malaysia.
Now, I don't see why they'd go for that. There's going to be a huge release fee for kicking Jolyon Palmer out.
For the first time in recorded history, Jolyon Palmer will be getting paid, not will be doing the paying.
Yes. But really, is it that important to swap the drivers right this second?
If-
Well, obviously not right this second. We're talking about 2 weeks' time.
well, yeah.
Well, within the next 2 weeks.
We'll be talking about a week tonight, effectively.
Yeah.
Have Renault had enough of Joe Poe for either having bad luck or, when he doesn't have bad luck, bad racing?
Possibly.
Because Pierre Gasly is...
Well, no.
He's not saying he is available. He is intimating that he would be available if the question were ever asked.
Yeah,
Because the Super Formula season finishes the week before Malaysia.
Yeah, but he's kicked off, hasn't he, at media for misquoting him.
Yeah, because last year he said, "Oh, I'll be in a Toro Rosso next season," and then Toro Rosso went,
No, you won't.
You're going to Japan.
Yeah. And
Danny Kvyat, we don't like you, but here's a contract."
Yeah. But so it looks like Kvyat's going to stay at Toro Rosso.
Yes, that's already confirmed.
Yeah. Further, but his teammate for at least 2018, possibly for the last few races of 2017, Pierre Gasly.
With Nobuharu Matsushita doing some FP1s.
Because Honda... I
No,
know.
Honda don't get a say over the Toro Rosso driver.
No, Red Bull are looking at bringing Matsushita into the Young Driver Programme because they've got rid of Nico Kari and they have a vacant slot. And Matsushita
Is a Honda driver, isn't he?
he's doing okay in F2 at the minute.
Okay.
He's not crap. He was on the podium in the feature race in Italy.
He was, yeah. If it was a second, I think.
In the end, yes.
Yeah.
Cross the line third, so of course he came second.
Right.
So they're looking at Matsushita as potentially a prospect for the future. Who, let's face it, he's not going to win F2 this year, so he's got another season in F2 to try and go for the title where he'll be fighting against Ollie Rowland, because Charles Leclerc is not going to be in Formula 2.
No,
He's going to be in a Sauber.
He's going to be in a Sauber, which
Possibly.
I can't see any other way around it, because Sauber have agreed with Ferrari that they will get current 2018 engines next year. Ferrari have got Charles Leclerc, who is one of the most dominant drivers in whatever the formula below Formula 1 is.
And one of the most exciting to watch as well.
Oh, hell
Yeah.
yes.
And, don't forget Ferrari also have Antonio Giovinazzi as well.
Yeah.
So, seats are plenty. So we've gone as far as where?
We've got Gasly to
Gasly
Toro
to Toro
Rosso.
Rosso. What comes after that?
What comes after that is someone who isn't with Renault now. Because Robert Kubica has, according to Mark Hughes, asked for and got a release from his short-term Renault contract so he can possibly talk to Williams.
So this Sainz to Renault thing means that obviously Gasly has to fill Sainz's seat at Toro Rosso.
Because they wouldn't put an old driver in.
Yeah, and Kubica now obviously thinks, well, okay, with Carlos Sainz to come to this team, there's no point in me hanging around. Williams will have obviously shown interest privately
Williams and Sauber have both shown interest
in Robert Kubica.
in Robert Kubica.
And I think it's a smart move from Robert Kubica to go, right, well, release me from my short-term contract because there's no point in me being here. Thank you for putting me through my paces in the last year.
Renault have also run out of experienced driver days for testing.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be able to test at the post-season, what they call the young drivers test, but, well, by that point, teams have only got young drivers left anyway.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be able to test in Abu Dhabi, which means that he will just be in the garage wearing yellow and available if somebody doesn't turn up. Which they've got Nick De Vries to do anyway, because he's there all the time anyway.
Isn't he McLaren development as well?
Did I mean Nick De Vries?
No, you
Ollie
mean
Rowland?
Lafitte.
Latifi.
Latifi.
Nicholas Latifi. It's been
Yeah.
a long day. Because when I just happened to notice after a race, I think it was Hungary, they had driver's seats on the pit wall, and they had a seat for Latifi, so he's got a seat made for that car,
A literal seat.
a literal
Yeah,
seat.
he has a seat. So
Figuratively,
So that's quite a surprise. I mean, this is still developing, and again, no confirmation on this, as Paul does a little bit of left-handed googling. But it does appear to be the case that Robert Kubica has released himself, or asked for a release from Renault, and has been granted it to go and talk to other teams. Robert Kubica's comeback, he's not allowing it to be scuppered by Renault signing any other driver. He's taking it firmly into his own hands and is going to try and get a seat anywhere that he can to prove that he's still got it.
yeah, as we talked about with Sean, which you'll get to hear later.
Breaking time.
Stop it, you're not Lee. So the next thing is Palmer out of Renault. Well, it's certainly looking like it, because if the signing signs, Hulkenberg's already under contract, Kubica wants out. That's going to be...
Well, the only place Palmer can go at Renault is to become a third driver again. He won't want to do that. The money that he puts into the team won't pay for that. And
He was paying, when he was third driver, he was paying $100,000 a session.
yeah,
And he got 10 FP1s in the season. 6 of them he actually completed. The other 4 he broke down.
yeah,
They should have
theme
seen
there.
the signs.
yeah. But
And he's not...
They did see the signs and they signed him.
Oh,
Hey,
God.
nice one, Dan. That's a good
Way!
joke.
Dan Wynn's dad joke of the night.
Yes, so far anyway. So far.
No, I don't think any of us can top that. Yeah, Palmer with 2 years of actual F1 race experience under his belt isn't going to want to go back to being a third driver for the occasional Friday morning practice.
Well, no, but you've also got Ollie Rowland, who's being, quite successful in his formula, and as you just mentioned, Nicholas Latifi as well. Both of those are one of them's going to be a reserve driver, and one of them's going to be a, in inverted commas, development driver.
Yeah.
For next year. That's probably how it's going to go.
Yeah, Palmer basically, we don't think he will have a seat next
Well,
year.
he was
Joe
fifth.
Sawwood reckons he could be in with a shout at Williams.
Yeah, he was fifth choice for Renault this year. Let's just not
Yeah.
forget that.
I suspect Formula E.
So you suspect Palmer and Kubica could be looking at going to Williams, which would mean
Well, no, not Palmer and Kubica, Palmer or Kubica.
Palmer and Kubica are fighting basically
Yeah,
together for
to
the
get
same
the seat that doesn't belong to Lance Stroll. It's the over 25 seat in the Williams
Yeah.
team.
Yes.
Which will mean Massa retires again, but properly this time.
Yeah, now I don't know that, as I mentioned earlier this year, I don't know that he'll get the same nostalgic retirement that he got, last year. Well, I know it wasn't his last race, but that penultimate race when he retired in Brazil.
Walking off down the pit lane, flag draped over the shoulders.
Marshall's in tears.
Yeah.
It won't even have the same effect if the same thing happens again. He's got to win that race.
Yeah. 3 months later, hi guys.
Yeah, well, he's got to be fair, the only way he's ever going to beat that is if he wins in Brazil. That's the only way he's ever going to beat it.
Yeah. Do a victory donut over the start line. Okay then, you've got it. But one of the reasons that it looks like Massa is going is a lack of sponsorship.
Yeah, the money from Brazil is stopping sponsoring him. And Massa is 36 now. He's one of the elder drivers on the grid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's if the sponsorship money's drying up, then you've got to look at other drivers perhaps taking Felipe Massa's seat. Palmer does come with money. Whether that's enough to take a seat at Williams or not, I don't know. Other drivers being talked about for that Williams seat, of course, we mentioned Robert Kubica. I don't know if he'll bring much sponsorship with him, but
He could be sponsored by his own energy drink.
He could be sponsored by his own energy. He could be sponsored by a multitude of companies. Will probably want to sponsor Robert Kubica if he gets a seat confirmed.
Yeah,
it's a good story, isn't it?
Oh, it's a wonderful story, and the hype train will go mental if he gets a seat for next year. And which company wouldn't want their name emblazoned on his shirt as he walks out of the garage for the first time?
Well, apart from Renault, apparently.
To what exactly? to what will almost certainly be, or what would almost certainly be, a standing ovation from the entire pit lane.
Yeah, you'd probably see Hype switching their sponsorship from Force India to whatever team he's with, just to get the Robert Kubica hype.
That's it. Another driver who's been talked about for that Williams seat, of course, is Paul di Resta after his impressive half an hour notice race at Hungary, where he still managed to outqualify Marcus Ericsson.
You could have outqualified Marcus Ericsson on a skateboard.
Probably. It still annoys me how pleased Marcus Ericsson looked after that qualifying session. Really, really gets my goat. How can you be pleased with that? You've just been beaten by a man who hasn't even been in that car before and hasn't even been on a Formula 1 circuit for 4 years. Anyway, rant over.
It's a very ranty show tonight.
It is. Sorry.
You'll find out later. Breaking time.
Yeah. So that means di Resta is also being looked at for the Williams seat. Paddy Lowe's pretty much said that he would consider Paul di Resta.
Yeah.
If they need to find another driver. It looks as though they're going to have to find another driver.
Yeah. Well, the rumour was, of course, last week that Lawrence Stroll is prepared to put up the money to get Alonso. But if McLaren aren't running a Honda anymore,
Alonso may
stay, especially with McLaren having the Renault in the back of it, because we all know Alonso's history with Renault.
Yeah, of course, and it's sort of it's romantic in a way, isn't it? Sort of the team that he did really well at and won 2 world championships, and then the team that he's had awful problems with. They're marrying each other, and it's supposed to be, Super Alonso for his, his sort of final. It's got to be his final fling in Formula 1, hasn't it? Really,
you'd think so. I mean, I think the deal that Alonso signs, if Alonso signs with a Formula 1 team for 2018, it will be his final deal. Be that 1, 2, or 3 years.
Yeah,
that will be. This is my last contract before retirement, and the Alonso retirement party starts with. Oh God! Don't do a Rosberg style video for Christ's sake. But Alonso to IndyCar probably now won't happen because Andretti have taken on someone whose name I can't remember. Chris, you found it earlier.
No, it was Dan.
Dan, you found it earlier?
I found it on the Twitters.
Dan is now left-handed twittering, so I'm going to pad and fill for...
Because Takuma Sato is leaving Andretti at the end of the year, possibly leaving IndyCar. So that leaves a seat with the team, which is what everyone thought Alonso might take if it was going to be another year of Honda and he wanted out.
Well, this weekend is it Sonoma this weekend in IndyCar?
Yes, it is. It's the big season finale on Saturday. It's Sunday.
Zach Veach is off to Andretti.
Now, I'm going to use a catchphrase that has been used on 3 Legs Fourth Down before.
And
that is, who's that guy?
He looked like that.
Dan is showing Paul a picture of Zach Veach.
I'm showing it to the microphone as well.
and
so
to the
the
microphone.
podcast listeners can see it.
Yeah,
All the podcast listeners can listen to what
yeah,
he looks like.
Absolutely no idea who he is. But apparently he is going to be the new Takuma Sato, and that means that seat in Andretti that
Is
Alonso
closed.
was going to take isn't going to happen unless they run an extra car, which IndyCar teams
They
want
might-
to do, because some teams run one, some teams run three.
Well, they might do it at the Indy again. You never know.
And at the Indy 500, I think they can run up to, I don't know, 27 or something per team. Now then, this also has knock-on effects for Force India.
Well,
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Because Perez was looking to leave and go to another team, possibly Renault, possibly Williams.
Renault or Williams.
But
But it looks like he has to stay now.
he will be staying at Force India. Ocon, of course, is already there for next year.
Yeah.
Force India will be glad of Perez's money.
Yeah.
And was it Bob Fernley or Matt Schnafnoy that said they want to keep the current driver lineup?
Both, I think.
Yeah, which is surprising given there's been a bit of tension.
Slight tiffing.
Yeah.
Yeah, mild rumblings of discomfort between the two of them. But apparently they've now had their time on their naughty step, and all is rosy in the Force India garden again, driver-wise.
Which is good. But that, again, if that shuts the door at Force India because those two drivers are staying, again, that has another knock-on effect, because if Perez was going elsewhere, Force India will be looking to get another driver in. Now, they probably would have gone for extra discount on their Mercedes engines by putting Pascal Wehrlein in the car.
Except
But, yes, there is a problem with that.
we talked late last year about how Williams have a requirement to have an older driver in, an over 25 driver.
Yeah.
Force India, heavily sponsored by Kingfisher, also have the same requirement.
Yes, and don't they have the Johnny Walker sponsorship these days that McLaren used to have as well?
Yes, so
Yes.
they need a responsible over 25-year-old, neither of which is Pascal Wehrlein or Esteban Ocon.
So that means Perez has to be
Is the
there for booze
responsible.
purposes.
Yeah. And commercial
Commercial
purposes.
booze
Yeah,
purposes.
yeah. But that is, basically Sergio Perez is there as the over 25 driver.
He is Des.
Yeah, much as in, Williams need an over 25 driver, which is why they can't have, Pascal Wehrlein can't go to Williams either. So Pascal Wehrlein's seat looks as though it's going to go to Charles Leclerc next year, with, as you just said before, Sauber already confirming their Ferrari 2018 engine deal.
And unless Fred Vassar really stamped his authority on the team by getting rid of Ericsson, when it's Ericsson's people that are providing the money to keep the team going, that's not good for Wehrlein.
Ericsson's people must be aware that Ericsson hasn't performed particularly well.
You ever seen that Simpsons episode where they have the American football team and Homer takes over as coach and he promotes Bart to quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is kind of the relationship between Ericsson's people and Ericsson
Well,
and the team.
no, it isn't, because Bart Simpson knows that he's not a good quarterback. So
we're basically saying that Marcus Ericsson is less self-aware than Bart Simpson.
yes. I'm sorry, but he's
Keep padding, I'm getting a drink.
he's Marcus Ericsson for me is the, and I know Lee has made it well known in the past as well. Marcus Ericsson for me is the biggest underachiever, probably least deserving of a Formula One drive on the grid, more so than any other driver.
I would agree with that. He looked really good. That first race out, him and Nasser in the Sauber in Australia, was it last year?
2015.
Was it year before now. When, they both did pretty well.
Yeah, he's the only Caterham driver to have left Caterham and gone somewhere else in Formula One. Other than Will Stevens' one race, but we don't talk about that.
No. Oh, in that case, another Bart Simpson connection, though. Underachiever and proud of it.
Yeah, like I just said before, that qualifying in Hungary when he put his thumbs up and winked at the camera and smiled.
Maybe he was just that happy to see a camera pointing at him.
maybe.
He's a Sauber driver. It doesn't happen all that often.
No. So yeah, I mean, basically the knock on is that Wehrlein is going to be out of Formula One.
Yeah, and the current thinking on that is Mercedes are going to put him in DTM for one last season.
They believe he could be DTM champion in Mercedes' farewell to the sport.
Well, in the farewell to the sport, DTM isn't going to be a thing after next year.
Well, yeah, the whole. Yeah.
DTM is
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
no more, so it could be that Wehrlein is the last DTM champion
Well, also. It's
until they resurrect it again.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that DTM is the Mercedes DTM team are sponsored by the same water company that sponsors Force India.
Well,
BWT. Yeah. The better water was it better water technology or something like
but
that?
they're not as pink.
No, I think they are.
Are they?
I think
I've got to admit, I've not watched DTM because
DTM used to be touring cars, but in Germany. Now it's just basically
German touring cars.
No, it's not. It's they're not cars. They're like plastic shells on top of subframe racing cars. You know, they're built for racing. They're not the cars that transformed from being road cars into race cars. They are like space framed tube chassis with a bit of carbon fiber plonked on top of them. Anyway, that it means that Pascal Wehrlein's probably not going to be in the sport, which is strange considering that 2 years ago he was a darling of Mercedes. And
with all the hype that was surrounding him when he came in.
Yeah, remember all that press that was surrounding him at that pre-season test?
Yeah,
And we had to wait ages for Ted Kravitz on Sky to get a word with him. And it was just like, it's the first interview with Pascal Wehrlein. Let's sort of hear how he comes across. He came across all right, you know. We've called him Princess Pascal in the past, but
so does half the grid apparently.
yeah, but perhaps a little unfairly, you know. He was actually quite seriously injured at the beginning of this year, and when he had to step aside and let Giovinazzi in, but I think it's a bit of a shame that such a young talent like Wehrlein is not going to be on the grid in Formula One next year, or it doesn't look like he's going to be on the grid again. None of this is confirmed.
This is all pure speculation.
And
I am choking here.
And I think he's every bit as good a driver as Ocon is.
I think he is too. I mean, Ocon's
And-
had the opportunities.
And Ocon's every bit as good a driver as Perez is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and who doesn't want to see 3 Sergio Perez's on the grid? You know, Perez. I
Ocon
really,
at a guess.
Yeah, probably not. I don't know where to go. Sergio's everywhere.
You know, the only time we see 3 Sergio Perez is when Perez puts him into a wall and he gets slightly concussed.
Yes.
I think there was a box of tissues falling off behind you.
Oh, was it
This is
behind me? Was it? Sorry.
Yeah, this is a very background noisy podcast tonight. We do apologise. We're actually recording at my house instead of Lee's.
Yes.
Yes, we've moved 3 legs towers.
Yes.
It's front. We're not.
We're actually in the blogging room.
It's 3 legs, 4 wheels blog room, not pod room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence the lack of soundproofing and lots of keyboards.
Absolutely, yeah. So if we do sound a little different when you're listening to us this week, then that's the reason why. Also, Leslie.
So we're not quite as sweary. So the only other point that's left on here is
What we've already mentioned, I think.
Alonso probably staying.
Yeah. The merry-go-round comes back full circle. Everyone's moving, which means Alonso's probably staying, as for reasons we've already mentioned.
Because it seems to have been for the last few weeks that the main condition for Alonso staying at McLaren in 2018 was not a Honda in the back of it.
Yes.
So by him not moving, everything else has shifted.
Wow. Who would have thought that? You know.
Now just watch, we'll get to the 1st of December and whoever wins the world title will pull a Rosberg, retire, and then we'll all be screwed.
No, I don't.
Except Wehrlein.
Except
Yeah.
Wehrlein.
I think even if Lewis or Sebastian win the title, because I think they're the only two who can realistically keep up the challenge for the rest of the season, I don't think either of them would retire.
Well, Ericsson can still... No, Ericsson can't win it mathematically now.
There's a lot of drivers who can't win it mathematically, isn't there? There's only about 275 points on the board.
and Lewis has got 238.
Oh, well, there you go.
Anything could happen, but probably won't.
No,
So that's what we think the situation is.
there's not even that many points on the board. Ignore me, I can't do maths.
No, you're right, you can't.
Yeah.
There's 7 races left, and that's 175 points.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, that's what we think the situation is at the moment. By the time you listen to this, that may have changed, and if you sat there going, what did they know? What, stuff all. Or it could be, oh, they were right.
It could be they were partially right, but I've listened to podcasts before of ours when we've been completely wrong.
That's most of them.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, this is what, episode 122.
This is 122. How many have we done wrong?
Well, at least 120.
Yeah.
I had smug face on last week for saying that I got the weather right in Italy, but that in 121 podcasts I was right once. No, so
Law of averages.
You just
What-
have to listen to our betting tips.
No, you don't.
Or
Listen
take
to our betting tips, ignore them, and
or take the odds of 121 to 1 as likely as how we are to be right.
yeah, that's true. Right, we'll move on. As we said earlier, we are without Lee tonight.
We
we are with Sean Kelly. So it's one of our patented jump cuts, and I hope this works because I haven't mixed it yet. Here's a little chat that we've had with Sean. So, as promised, we are here with a guest tonight. We may be one man down, but I think we've got a more than suitable replacement.
Absolutely.
Yep, His Serene Highness Lord Statman.
Yes, welcome Sean Kelly.
As I'm popularly referred to, yes.
Yeah.
Greetings from the Principality of Monaco. May I extend a warm regards from one tax-dodging place to another.
Very well done, very well done. So yeah, there's a little bit of a story behind why we've just referred to you as His Serene Highness Lord Statman. Do you just want to give us a quick brief overview as to why that might be?
Yes, well, today I was admitted as a member of the Automobile Club de Monaco, and I had to go to the actual clubhouse, which is located halfway between the start-finish line and Saint-Devote, to all of you who know the racetrack, I'm sure you do. And, it's all Masonic handshakes and, all that weird stuff. And they said, welcome to the club, so I'm, slightly bewildered, but I thought it was very, very cool. You walk in there and you think, I walk in there and I think, I'm not sure if I belong here. And then she's like, well, and you're a member now, so actually, yes, you do.
Yes, you do. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so you can loiter all you want. So I did. I took as many pictures as I could of all the various stuff they've got in there, and there's a lot of stuff, varying from old. They've got old V10 Formula One engines in there.
Wow.
To Louis Chiron's personal trophy collection. Louis Chiron, one of the used to be the clerk of the course in Monaco up until he actually competed in the first championship Monaco Grand Prix in 1950. I think he might be the oldest person to still score points. I can't remember. I've never used that stat, so I never have to remember.
A stat
It's
that
not
Sean
I ever
doesn't
have to
know.
remember in my head. I think he scored as late as 1955, but yeah, he ran this race until he died in 1979. So he's very synonymous with motorsport in Monaco. In fact, the corner, the very famous, the left-right into the swimming pool complex now is actually known as the Louis Chiron corner.
Oh, right, okay. I always call it the swimming pool complex. I don't know. I think that's what it just tends to get known as.
I don't know, when it's on the PlayStation, it's the bloody swimming pool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's funny how some corner names don't really catch on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's a Paul Frere corner at Belgium. People don't call it that, but
Oh,
they
there
think
you
of it
are.
as being they think of it as being Stavolo.
Ah,
Oh, right.
but it's actually got an official name.
Yeah, I even I confess I get them confused because I think Stavolo is the corner before the Paul Frere corner. I can't remember myself now, but
Yeah.
maybe I should have prepared better for this podcast. Really, I heard I was coming on a podcast to talk about motor racing. Well, what will the questions be? I wonder.
And you
Not
thought-
about questions about corners in Belgium, anyway.
You thought I could prepare for
Yes.
this, or I could run from Italy through France to Monaco.
Yes, well, I was on the run, you see, because I was thinking if I could get
Absolutely.
across the border by 10 o'clock tonight, they'd never catch me, and they didn't.
Good stuff. So you're in Monaco at the moment. It's when you have a look around. Obviously, the small principality. It's there are parts, aren't there, of the racetrack that you can pick out bits and pieces. But it's amazing how much the place doesn't look like the race circuit when it's not being a race circuit. Little side roads and things that you don't obviously see when throughout the weekend when all the barriers are up.
Yeah, I mean, when you're here for a few weeks, as I am right now, and just it's not a Grand Prix, you just kind of go about your business, and I don't want to say you don't think about it, because obviously you do. You see it and you think, oh look, Saint-Denis, or oh look, Casino Square,
Yeah.
but you see it in its everyday guise. You don't see it with all the barriers up and all that stuff. And I mean, like just walking back to my apartment here to do this podcast, I walked through Casino Square, and if anybody ever tells you they walk through Casino Square with any sort of nonchalance, they're liars, because you can't walk through that park and not think about Formula One, not think about seeing a car coming through on the apex and over the hill and avoiding that huge bump on the way down to Mirabeau. It's impossible to not put it in those terms. But it yet on a here we are, it's a Monday night and it's pretty deserted. It's a quiet night. I mean, I can see, as I'm talking to you now, from my balcony here, I can see Rascasse,
Yeah.
and I can see the bright sort of LED lights. They have a pretty garish light display that goes on at Rascasse, especially on Grand Prix weekend or the yacht show is about to take place here, which utilizes a lot of the space of the pit lane and the exit of the swimming pool complex. So it would be the same sort of for 4 or 5 days at Rascasse. The same as if anybody's been to the Grand Prix, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just mayhem there on race nights.
That sounds like it's similar to here, where it's a good place to be during the race, but bizarre the rest of the time.
Yeah.
'Cause we get the same with the TT over here, because the TT course is just roads. For
Yeah.
50
Yeah.
weeks, 48 weeks of the year, but not the party atmosphere.
No.
And our casino on the Isle of Man isn't as, shall we say, salubrious.
Classy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's fair to say.
I would say in mitigation, I'm sure you don't get anywhere near the hangers-on that the Monaco Grand Prix does. I mean, you have to be a real enthusiast for bikes to do the TT. 'Cause
Yeah.
You're not going to the glitz and the glamour of the Isle of Man. It's not like sun, sea, and I mean, there's sea.
We've
but
got
it's
the
not
sea.
It's not glamorous sea. The Irish Sea is not the most glamorous body of water on the earth. You've got to be real, like hardcore, like pork pie eating thermos flask brigade. So you can get that. You can get that lot coming to the Monaco Grand Prix because they'd all be pushed out by all the friggin' hangers-on and the Rattle Your Jewelry Club.
Yeah.
And you'll be pleased to hear that there's a refreshing lack of that when it's not a Grand Prix. Because I don't think anybody plays that game here when it's not a Grand Prix, because it's a game you're going to lose. No matter how much money you've got, someone else here's got more. So, it's no one. I wouldn't say it's not overly ostentatious. You would think it would be, and yet
It isn't.
honestly, most people I know in this town are just regular people.
Yeah, just a Mediterranean port.
Yeah, it's just like the same old thing you'd expect it to be, and it's not all that expensive either. I mean, it's massively expensive to rent stuff, but after that, it's same old, same old. It's no more expensive than London or New York or anywhere else. So but it's a very rewarding place. It's still, I don't want to downplay it. It is really cool to be here for a few weeks and to be doing stuff all about the town, especially when the ACM call you in and say, "Hey, you can be a member." Oh, great, nice one.
Are you a member of that club with any current racing drivers? Is there any current Formula One drivers that are a member of the ACM?
Well, I'm fairly certain that a lot of the incumbents here in Monaco would be members anyway. because there's probably benefits. There is a lot of local benefits attached. Like if you're a member, you get discounts on A, B, and C things to
Yeah.
do in this town. So if you are a resident here, there is, there's something to be said for it. So I don't see why Formula One drivers wouldn't take that up just to cut down expenses a little bit. Not that they're based in Monaco to cut down on any sort of expenses. I'm
Of
not
course not.
implying that for 1 second. Obviously, they're here for the love of the place.
But if
Yeah,
you
it's
do
got
get 2
nothing
pies for the
to-
price of one, that's a bonus.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth then, would you?
No, absolutely not.
So yes, they probably are. I did think about asking, but I thought, well, they probably can't tell me because it's probably a confidentiality thing. But obviously, I'm going to be hanging out a lot at the clubhouse, propping the bar up. So if any familiar faces come in, I will report back to you in a subsequent episode.
Yeah, that sounds good.
As I said, as I remarked to Jackie Stewart in the bar the other day, I was talking to those lads on the Isle of Man podcast of the week, and they used to be asking after you, Jackie. So
Yeah, why not?
Is he still driving?
He won't be drinking.
no, he won't be drinking. Exactly, he'd be drinking the tea with me. Is what he'd be doing.
Yeah. So yes, it's been a fairly busy week then in the in our respective world of Formula One. Not necessarily on track because we haven't had a race since Italy, but there's been a bit of movement in the silly season market with engines and drivers and bargainings and toing and froing.
And yet nothing officially confirmed, but we all know it's going to happen.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
Or do
yeah,
we?
It looks that way. No, I think it sounds like a done deal to me. Quite a complicated situation, obviously, but a lot of dominoes have got to fall all at once. But I think if it does fall the way it's going to fall, I think everybody ends up winning, honestly.
Yeah.
McLaren get out of the engine deal from hell. Carlos Sainz gets to go to a team where there is a future prospect. I think
Yeah.
Sainz to me is maybe the most underrated driver in the sport. He's been phenomenal. I mean, Monza was the first time this year that he failed to score points in a race he actually finished. He'd either had points or retirements up to this point.
It's pretty
he's
incredible
always-
when you look at
Yeah,
Toro
he-
Rosso's performance for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Danny Kvyat can't get arrested right now. He seems to be nowhere. But Sainz has that Alonso-like ability to always come up with a result, which is really impressive. Maybe he's not quite in Alonso's class, or at least we don't know that for certain yet. But certainly he's got an ability to bring the car to the end, and usually somewhere in a useful position. So I think it'd be a great move for him to go to Renault, which is obviously Renault. I think Renault are taking it seriously now, and I think they're going to go in the direction that Toro Rosso couldn't give him, because Toro Rosso are never going to be a threat to Red Bull. It's always going to be the case that in a tiebreaker situation, the Red Bull will take precedence over the Toro Rosso, and he's not going to get in at Red Bull. So by moving to Renault, we can also gauge him against Nico Hülkenberg, who we know is a capable driver.
Yeah.
But we also know cannot buy a podium finish to save his life. And if he is not on the podium in Singapore, he will set a new Formula One record. 129 Grand Prix without a podium finish. That's Adrian Sutil has that record right now, 128. Well, actually, they both do. So if he's not on the podium in Singapore, Hülkenberg's the new record holder. So there's futility for it. Damon Hill won a world championship, and I think he only had 115 Grand Prix in his career. Hülkenberg's done 128 and hasn't been on the podium yet. And I mean, Sainz hasn't either. But you obviously Renault have mega bucks to throw at this, and I think they want to win. Last year you couldn't really take it seriously because they were basically using a Lotus, and Lotus had no money by the end of it. The whole team capital saying they had no money. But you can see some of Hülkenberg's qualifying performances, especially, suggest that they are getting their act together this year. For Toro Rosso, if they get the Honda, it's brilliant for Red Bull because basically they get a Honda in reserve, and if Honda get their act together, they can say, "Thank you very much, we'll have that.
Yeah.
You can have our Renault customer deal back, and we'll have the Works Honda." Red Bull then get their Works engine deal, which they are a customer at the moment with a badged Renault engine. If they got a Works Honda, which turns out to be as good as, if not better than the other guys, it's a win-win for them. Honda gets to stay in the sport. They don't, they're not exiting with their tails between their legs. And after these 3 years, which have just been shocking, I mean, terrible, terrible, everything. There's no redeeming features about it. I mean, I'm surprised it's taken Alonso this long to spit his dummy out. And with McLaren getting into bed with Renault, which seems like an unlikely event, bearing in mind that when Alonso won his first world title in 2005, he was with Renault and he beat a McLaren. It's stranger things have happened, but what it does mean now, it's put up or shut up for McLaren, because McLaren could no longer blame the engine for their shortcomings. If the car is not up to scratch, they can't say, "Oh, it's the engine." So
they have to be beating Red Bull, don't they?
Or at least on par with them.
They have to be in with a shake now. They can't just say, "Oh, well, if we had a better engine." No. You can't lean on that anymore.
No excuses.
Red Bull are up at the front there. I mean, I know they're not going to be winning the championship this year, but they are at least sticking their nose in every now and again. And that's where McLaren are going to have to be. There's going to be no more excuses on that front. So I think it's great. The whole situation plays out brilliantly. Whoever came up with this plan is a genius. Somebody in there plays a good chess match, because they worked out how all these pieces move around the board exactly to fit everybody's agenda. So everyone's a winner, and including the fans as well. Get Carlos Sainz in a Renault.
Yeah.
Love to see Sainz move up the grid, because he's a really exciting driver. We'd love to see McLaren competitive. McLaren arsing around at the back. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the prospect of Alonso being back at the front. Oh, heavens be praised. Can you imagine?
Alonso versus Ricciardo fights. I'll take some of that.
Yeah, I mean, Alonso versus friggin' anybody. Because invariably he's just battling Charlie Whiting, because he's always in there filing engine change, documentation. Oh, you got a 700 place penalty again, Fernando. Oh, okay, well, who's counting at this stage?
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at what happened with the Honda engines in Italy and Monza, I actually thought they were making. I made this point on last week's podcast as well. I actually thought they were making some decent progress. Obviously, McLaren started right near the back. They were making their way forward at what is predominantly a power circuit, and it's well, hang on a second, the Honda looking, are they actually finally getting their act together by providing a good power unit? These cars are moving forward. They're on the verge of scoring points, but then look what happened when they turned the wick up. Both the cars had power unit issues and they broke down. If you're working at Toro Rosso, are you not going to be thinking, "Oh God, we're going to get the Honda"? I mean, you say it's win-win for everyone, but are Toro Rosso the team who are really sort of, because someone's going to lose out a little bit? Are they the ones who are going to be a bit apprehensive about this?
I think they'd be right. I think they wouldn't. It's a human emotion to look at that situation and think, "Uh-oh, it doesn't look like we get a good end of the deal here." But Toro Rosso are underwritten by Red Bull. It's not a situation where Honda's ongoing lack of reliability or performance will negatively affect the team's budget. In McLaren's case, it was, look how few sponsors are on that car.
Yeah.
Toro Rosso don't need to worry about that kind of stuff, because Red Bull are paying the check, or paying the bill. So at least they got that going for them. And they don't. And Toro Rosso have never had the pressure to succeed, the commercial pressure to succeed, that someone like McLaren does. So if they don't succeed, it's like, well, it's a downer. But are actually, mechanics' jobs and stuff are not on the line in the same way as they might be at McLaren. To say, I mean, I know I'm oversimplifying that slightly, and it would be human nature for the mechanics to think, "Oh God, we really got to deal with that engine." But it could turn out to be a boon for Toro Rosso. Are Honda turning a corner? We've said it so many times now.
Yeah,
that's the thing. We're 3 years into this. That's why McLaren won out, because it's like we're always going to be we're always going to be getting somewhere at the next race. It's like, well, the next race never comes. It's a bit like when Ferrari weren't winning in the early 1990s, and it was always a case that, hey, we're going to be trying to win races next season, and the next season would never come, and it would just always be the same sort of mediocre performance. And that's what we've got with Honda right now. So for Toro Rosso, I think it'll be great, because if it doesn't work, hey, yeah, we don't win as many points, but we're probably we have job security here. We have the security of the team sponsor. And if it does work, well, hey, suddenly you've got a very, very competitive Toro Rosso proposition going on. So,
for one season until the big boy team come in and take all the toys away.
Yeah.
Probably yes. But as I said before, the worst that can happen to Toro Rosso is they go back to being a customer of Renault, which Toro Rosso are not going to win stuff as a Renault customer. Because they're always going to be subservient to Red Bull, and they have the same engine, so it's always going to be a second-string Red Bull. But if they have a stronger engine than the parent team, than the senior team, maybe they occasionally get the cat amongst the pigeons. The last time that happened was in 2008. You remember Vettel in a Toro Rosso in 2008 was a better proposition than Webber and Coulthard in a Red Bull.
Yeah.
It was the last season before Red Bull became truly competitive, which, not coincidentally, was when Vettel moved over to Red Bull. And then the regulations changed. We had blown diffusers and all that, or double diffusers at the time. And then the whole paradigm changed from being McLaren and Ferrari to being Brawn and Red Bull. Red Bull have stuck around.
We can talk about the 2009 season tonight because Lee's not here, so we don't have to clean up after him.
Yeah, we don't have to, when he drools over the thinking about Jensen's multiple wins and,
Do you know what's funny? Our old producer at Speed Channel, our executive producer, Frank Wilson, never rated Jensen Button. And he was determined to jinx him that season. So much so that he went out, I kid you not, he went out and had a T-shirt made that said, "Congratulations, Jensen Button, 2009 World Champion." This is in, Japan. But before he clinches the championship, he was determined to jinx him. He made me wear it. In our race broadcast, when we were on the air, I was sitting there in the control room wearing my T-shirt that said "Congratulations, Jensen Button, 2009." And also, as an addendum to that, on the back it said "I'm a hot toddy," and the reason it said that was because Jean Todt was running for the FIA president. So he decided he didn't want Jean Todt to win the presidency, so he put that on it as well, just as a little sort of up yours. Needless to say, both those things actually happened. So there wasn't. If there was good luck, if there was bad luck going around, it went to the other people.
That's pretty funny. Did Jensen Button ever see you wearing that shirt, Sean?
I don't think so.
There's a possibility then.
Maybe I should have brought it with me. I mean, he's not here at the moment because he was away off in Chattanooga yesterday doing the half Ironman World Championship. But
yeah.
I'm just minding the place for him, you see. Because the funny thing is, I mean, I live in America and he lives here, and I do Ironmans, he does half Ironmans, and it's like we almost swap places for the week. But I've always referred to myself as a bargain bin Jensen Button. I'm basically Button without the Formula One credentials, without the world-class triathlete credentials, and without all of the money. Other than that, I'm your man.
So for the moment then, whilst you're in Monaco, you are actually the 2009 world champion.
If I had that T-shirt, yes, I would cross his name out and put my name on it instead. Yes.
So does Monaco?
Bin Jensen Button, get him here.
So does Monaco have to have one triathlete there at all times? And if so, when's it Dan's turn?
I tell you what, this is a really good place to be a triathlete. Not to wander too far off from the Formula One thing, but it's so easy to do training here because the water's warm. So when you get up in the morning, you go if you're in England, there's not warm water. So you get up in the morning and you think, I've got to go to a lake or even the sea, get on a wetsuit, get into really cold water and think, what the am I doing here? I could be in bed. Whereas when you're here, you go down to Lavato and you wander into the water's nice and warm, and you can see right to the bottom, and there's all these colourful fish swimming with you, and you just think, wow, this is amazing. And then when you want to get on the bike, obviously there's loads of hills and loads of scenic routes, and then obviously there's plenty of run routes. The fact that before we were doing this, I was away off in Italy and I ran from Italy back to Monaco. So I've been to 3 countries in the last 4 hours. So now I'm coming to the Isle of Man. So my world tour continues.
I've got to tell you now, Sean, Dan is smiling from ear to ear. I think he likes the sound of triathlon training in Monaco.
Yeah, it's the idea of swimming in warm water and cycling where it's not pissing it down in Derby.
Yeah. I think honestly, if someone asked Jensen Button this, I've never heard him being asked this question. I'm sure he would say, "I am a triathlete partly on the basis that it is so easy to be a triathlete in this part of the world, And I also, I mean, I know he has a place in Southern California as well, and I've lived many years in San Diego, and I know from experience it's really easy to be a triathlete there. I grew up in Shropshire, where it's not easy to be a triathlete. Because, you just think it's just not a place that lends itself to that sport. It's just, it can be cold and miserable, and it's much different when you wake up in the morning by the beach and it's all sunny and you just think, oh yeah, this is much more like it. I think I'll go out for a run. You're not going to have that up in Yorkshire, are you? When it's pissing down. I know the Brownies from Yorkshire, but
Yeah, I'm going to say Whitby versus Monaco.
Regular human beings, no, just stay in bed.
Yeah, this is why you don't get a lot of mountaineers from Holland.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, exactly. But do you get a lot of speed skaters? Yeah, what's that all about? Does Holland freeze up in the winter?
I think it does.
I guess it must do.
Right, while you're on, there's something I wanted to ask you for a couple of weeks. What do you think about Robert Kubica's chances of getting a drive next season?
Well, I think it's important to look at it with a clear perspective and not have it coloured by the rose-tinted spectacles.
And the hype.
And the hype. I mean, we would all love, wouldn't we, for Robert Kubica to make this triumphant comeback. It would be one of the great stories of this generation of Formula One if a guy who we've basically written off as never being able to drive a single-seater again made it all the way back into F1 and was a competitive proposition. The reality of that is, well, the reality of it is known probably only by Renault, because of course Renault ran him firstly in the old car and then in the 2017 car. I think only Renault and Kubica truly know the score with that. I think he was a little bit slower than Jolyon Palmer in that test, but I mean, I know it was a different day. Like, I think comparing Palmer's race performance, qualifying performance with Kubica's time, I think they were a little bit slower, but track conditions can come into that sort of thing. So we don't know. Like, is he legit? Is he not? I don't know. Has he lost a step? I mean, history is resplendent with many, many drivers who were fantastic drivers who had some sort of major accident and were never quite the same. You think of Johnny Herbert, who was an absolute phenom in the junior formula, and then after that massive accident he had at Brands Hatch in '88, I don't know what he thinks about it, but he was never able to be the driver he so clearly could be up to that point. Same with Martin Brundle after his crash at Detroit in '84. Not Detroit, Dallas. Again, it messed up his feet, and he was never able to be the obvious talent he was. The fact that he could stick it to Ayrton Senna in F3, was proof there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of examples like that, and maybe Kubica is one of those examples.
But there's counter examples as well. There's people like Hakkinen who had a really, really bad accident and then came back even stronger.
Yes, there are. You're right there. I'm sure part of Renault's agenda was to work out, well, which driver are you? Are you going to be the same driver we remember, or are you going to be like a 97% version? Because it is Formula One, and you've got to remember, 97% is not good enough. Ask Michael Schumacher. Well, I guess if only we could. You could ask Michael Schumacher how he was in the 3 years he was at Mercedes. He was still a world-class driver, but was he Michael Schumacher as we knew him? It was just not quite the Michael Schumacher he could be.
Just lacked that ruthlessness.
Yeah, if you've ever heard, I mean, not to go off onto a baseball tangent, but I once heard that Joe DiMaggio retired from baseball because he said, I couldn't be Joe DiMaggio anymore. He could still be a great player, but I couldn't be Joe DiMaggio anymore. So that's why I stopped. And that's the context. Like Robert Kubica, could he be a Felipe Nasr, something like that? Almost certain, sure. Could he be a Kubica where you're thinking, this guy is like a wizard? I mean, I still remember the way he acted. It's funny we mentioned the Louis Chiron corner, the entrance to the swimming pool. I reviewed all of the video from Monaco 2010, and my biggest memory of Kubica as a driver, his actual driving technique, was the way I felt the super slow-mo I watched of him going through the swimming pool. He had a very, very distinct line which was different from all the other drivers in such a way that had the cars been all unpainted, I could still tell you which one Kubica was, because he was so accurate over the curb. And he qualified, I think, on the front row that year. I think it was Renault's only front row of the year. And I could see why. It was like one of those instances, almost like, when you watch Usain Bolt sprinting, you just think, well, it's so obvious. Like the way the guy sprints, like his actual physical movement, it points to like an unfair advantage. You just think the way he physically runs, is so weird and so different that it gives him an advantage. And I felt like it was the same with Kubica in that car. You know, just like he's doing something with that car that others are not able to do, and that always stuck with me. Would he still be that driver? I don't know. And I guess we're at a stage now where Renault are saying we don't think he will be, because Renault, it's an open goal to aim at for Renault. I mean, it's not like they can't sign him. They're at a point right now where they would say, hey, we don't want Jolyon Palmer next year. Who should we have? And Kubica has basically got his hand up saying, me. And they're basically saying thanks, but no thanks. So, what does that tell us?
Yeah, I mean, the story came out earlier that he's asked for and got a release from his Renault contract today, and he's now looking at Williams.
Sorry, I'm just taking a drink there. Yes, half a mile. If Williams take him, then good luck to him. It's not as though Renault was the only option. But again, I would treat it with caution, because if Renault, as I said, if Renault were in a situation where they could have had Kubica and said no, then what does that say? The jury is out. Now it could
I
be
think when you've got Hulkenberg and you've got the opportunity of Sainz, that's a really strong lineup for the present and the future. And Kubica wouldn't add to that unless he was really good.
Yeah, unless he was Robert Kubica.
Yeah.
Is he Robert Kubica, or is he just a very, very capable driver? Because if he's just a very, very capable driver, we've got a list as long as your arm from F2 right now of drivers who will do exactly that. So if he can't be that phenomenal driver, then he runs the risk of being an irrelevance quite quickly.
Sort of a victim of his own success in that respect, isn't he? Because everybody remembers the Canadian Grand Prix that he won, and his phenomenal qualifying efforts in that year that he did with Renault, and specifically I think it was Japan, where he was lost for words at the end of the qualifying session. He actually couldn't speak. He put so much effort into the qualifying. A driver that is sort of at that level. If we were talking somebody like Fernando Alonso, for example, who had suffered such an injury, there's so much further you've got to go, isn't there, to get back to that level, rather than being just like a driver who was fairly mediocre, and is he still as good as he was when he was mediocre? It's much more difficult for him because he had that much potential that remained unlocked.
Yeah, and it could prove us all wrong. Maybe, you look at Williams for next year and you think, well, a Paddy Lowe inspired Williams sounds pretty. That doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world to end up in. And maybe Kubica, once you get Kubica in a race situation, it all comes flooding back to him. Who knows? Personally, I would love it if it does. I'm not treating this with cynicism. I would love to have Robert Kubica back, because it would be such a fantastic story. He'd come back and be the driver that he always was. We'll see. There is a train of thought that says Kubica has had his time, and we don't want to clog up the grid with quote unquote old drivers.
Yeah.
As those Kubicas on the scrap heap already. When you've got drivers like Antonio Giovinazzi and Charles Leclerc, they're all knocking on the door. There's just not enough seats right now. That's the problem. I think there's a wider thing there that Formula One does need more teams. We need more seats. You've got so many great young talents that just can't find a ride right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I also think it's kind of unfair as well that a Formula 2 champion doesn't get to defend his crown, but quite often they don't find a seat in Formula 1 straight away, which leaves them a year as a development driver in a Formula 1 team, or just with no drive whatsoever. It's just it's that seems a little bit. I understand the thinking behind it, not being able to be a multiple F2 champion, but it's it's almost like a dead end.
Yeah, it's sort of stop being a feeder series and
yeah.
It sounds like that they're going to change the point system for super licenses. Certainly, what I heard this week, that they're going to weight them, to the point where Formula 2 is going to be a priority feeder series now, which is perhaps not very democratic. When you think about what used to be World Series Renault is now Formula V8 3.5.
Yeah.
It's bad news for those kind of series. But on a Formula 1 weekend, it would make Formula 2 incredibly relevant, because then you're looking at, okay, well, who's winning in Formula 2? Those are the guys that need to be in Formula 1. And it would also help the commercial value of Formula 2 when you're selling the concept of Formula 2, particularly to TV networks. And you're saying, well, this is the premier category. They're not coming from elsewhere anymore. You're not going to have a Max Verstappen jumping from F3, or Lance Stroll, for instance. You're going to have to come through F2 to get there. That makes Formula 2 a much more attractive commercial package to a broadcaster. So that will grow that series as well.
And also the best drivers will want to go there as well. You won't necessarily get drivers jumping up from straight from European Formula 3, into Formula 1 or anything like that. If they have to go through F2 to become Formula 1 drivers, then they'll gravitate towards that. You'll end up with a better racing series in the long run.
Yeah, one of the problems you have with a spec series, ironically, Jonathan Palmer mentioned this about Formula Palmer Audi back in the day, is that when you have a spec series like that, one of the problems is that you bringing drivers into the series, they balk at the idea because they're worried they don't have enough excuses for when they fail, because they can't say, oh well, driver A beat me because he had a better car and engine combination. Well, actually, no, he had the same one you had.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I remember Formula Palmer Audi, and Jonathan Palmer would sit all the drivers down at the end of the race and tell them exactly what they'd done right and done wrong.
Is that right?
I remember they used to. The last 10 minutes of the TV shows was
it was a debrief.
Him doing a debrief with all the drivers.
Right. Well,
maybe on YouTube somewhere.
Did it work? I don't know.
I can't remember any of the drivers, so probably not.
No.
Oh.
No, I can't remember any of the drivers for Formula Palmer Audi either. But yeah, it's feeder series. In respect of GP3, you'd expect really, because if you look at the old way the drivers would do it, generally speaking, they come through the Formula 3000 before they got to Formula 1. And as you just said, in recent years they've been coming in from all sorts of different formula to get through. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that changes to the super license, which could work in Formula 1's favour, I guess.
Yeah, it will, and as I said, it will add prestige to the Formula 2 package. If you think of the early years of what was then GP2, when we had Nico Rosberg as the first champion, Lewis Hamilton the second champion. It was really, really good. And coming back to the point about Jonathan Palmer, I think drivers started to realise that maybe I don't want to be in a spec series, because if I lose, I have less excuse. It's almost it's a tough one. The more excuses you have for failure, the better, the more attractive it becomes to some management teams. So they don't really like that. It's funny. There are some in the jungle. Some teams are more equal than others, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The being in an ART or particularly a Prima racing car right now is a far more attractive proposition than being in, say, a MP Motorsport car. I don't know what Prima are doing to prepare the car properly, but certainly Charles Leclerc has flown in that car this year. He might be the best Formula 2 driver that we've ever seen. But the driver is still a significant part of it, and I always bring this back to Carmen Jordan, the only driver who's blocked me on Twitter, by the way.
Dare we ask what for?
mentioning her results. I think as I'm about to do. She potted around all season in a Carlin GP3 entry, qualifying the arse end of the grid, and she'd be, and there'd be like 1.2 seconds covering the whole grid, and then there'd be 2 seconds gap, and then her. And this is the same all season. She's basically wasting a seat. And then come the Sochi round, I think this is 2014, I want to say.
That sounds about right, when she was Renault development driver, or Lotus as it was then.
Yeah, I don't know what she was developing, but okay. Dean Stoneman, they put Dean Stoneman in that car. Now, Dean Stoneman is a proper racing driver, and he put the car on pole position. So,
well, there you go.
Like, straight away, like, just jump in the car, say, okay, I'll drive it, boom.
Yeah.
It's been 23rd on the grid, 24th on the grid, whatever, all season, bang, pole position, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing.
That's it. Well, as you say, it all comes back down to the drivers. But when you talk about the teams, then, as in preparing the car in the series, GP3. I don't know if you saw the race in Italy when they had the virtual safety car restart, and they had the 3 ART cars in GP3, all positioned 1, 2, and 3. Basically, had like a 2-lap sprint race between them, between the 3 of them to the end, and there was nobody else anywhere near them. It was wonderful to watch. The 3 drivers having a go, but as you say, they're all the same cars. When it comes,
just some of them are more same than others.
Yeah, that's it. But when it comes to Formula One, I mean, there's 2 schools of thought here. One school of thought is that and it's a conversation we've had on the podcast before as well. Whereas, do we want to go down the route of becoming like a single formula with fixed parts? Lee, I know he's not here tonight, but he argues quite often that a set amount of parts that all the teams have to use or have to buy should be part of the sport to make the sport closer racing and more exciting. Or do you go down the technological route? And where you want to see technological advancement to try and make racing a little bit more exciting.
Well, I've never liked the idea of spec parts in Formula One, and it must be said that spec series doesn't necessarily make for better racing. The regulations in themselves play to that. I mean, if we had every Formula One car the same right now, you'd still have the same problem with aero and all that. It would still be impossible to follow close behind.
Yeah,
so they've got to address that. My personal opinion was always, wouldn't it be brilliant if they just said, right, lads, you've got 100 litres of fuel. See you at the racetrack.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the rule.
That's all.
See, I lean more on your side when it comes to things like that. When it comes to the sport, I know everything's very secretive in Formula One, but I'd quite like to see to see it quite open. And Red Bull have put this part on their car. You might not be able to see it, but here's the part that they put on the car. And other teams look at it and go, well, that's quite good. Maybe we could do that, but improve it a little bit for our car, and then you wouldn't have necessarily, in my opinion, very humble opinion, you wouldn't necessarily have a season where it's 1 or 2 teams, sort of a 2-horse race for the title. You might have a third team that jumps in, or the front 2 at the beginning of the season could fall way down the field. It all depends on the development race and the technological advancement.
Yeah. Any sort of development freeze leaves us stuck where we are at the start of the season. I don't like development freezes. I understand why we have them, because obviously
budget caps.
Trying to keep a lid on what could be astronomical costs. I mean, Formula One teams, it's like the likes of Mercedes or Ferrari could spend ad infinitum, just ridiculous amounts of money. And I do agree that something has to be done to try and keep a lid on it. Unfortunately, that if we have development freezes, then whatever you show up with in Melbourne, if it's not competitive, well, it's going to be a long season.
Yeah.
That's the big problem with that. And I like the idea of cars that are quick in different places on the track. The idea, the fact that when I started watching it in '87, we had turbocharged cars are normally aspirated cars.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, in '87, the normally aspirated cars were nowhere, and the reason is because the turbos could run up to 4 bars of boost, which blew the doors off what the normally aspirated cars could do. In '88, they were cut down to 2.5. So that meant, and also Benetton and Williams had normally aspirated engines, so there was competitive teams with normally aspirated engines. And that meant that there was a certain discrepancy in where cars were going to be quick and where they were going to be less quick. Normally aspirated car might be quick around the corner, but of course the turbo would be quicker down the straight. And this carried on into the 3.5 litre era, because in '89, for instance, we had Ford with a V8, Renault and Honda with the V10, and Ferrari with a V12. And the cars had the capability of being quick in different locations on a racetrack, and quick in different ways at different racetracks. When we get to the point where it's somewhat homogeneous, we've all got the same. It has to be a certain V angle, and it has to be a V6,
and a compression ratio, etc.
Yeah, you stifle innovation, and it sucks basically. I understand the reason why we have to do it, but it does suck the life out of it. And I do think Formula One should always have that technical, the technical wizardry. It should never be dumbed down.
What was the last actual title battle between two different engine regulation? I can remember, was it the Hill Schumacher battle? It was a Renault V10 and a Ford V8 in '94.
Yeah, that would have been the last one.
That was the last one.
Yeah, that was the last title. That was the last title for a V8, and then Benetton switched to Renault the next season.
Yeah.
And '95 was the last year Ford ran the V8, and the last year that Ferrari ran the 12. By '96, they both switched to a V10. So, yeah, that was the end of that. But Ford ran an 8 because they just felt the packaging it was better, and certainly the torque they could generate made that car extremely nimble. It was a little bit lacking down the straight. It got outclassed at Hockenheim, for instance. But on the course, on the basis of a season, it was probably, in Michael Schumacher's hands at least, it was the thing to have.
Yeah, and if you look at how close that title, that season was. I mean, it was 1 point going into the last race, and of course we all know what happened in that last race in Australia. But that's a classic season battle where you had two completely different cars, as you say, completely different, good at completely different things, fighting for the championship. And I just feel, don't know how the other two here feel, but I just feel that it's gone the wrong route, and technological advancement should be the way that it goes.
No, I'm with you on that, Chris. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we do have tremendous technological advancement. The problem is with these turbo hybrid engines, it comes at immense cost, and it's self-defeating.
Yeah.
If there was a way, I think I've got to be careful not to sound like I've got the rose-tinted spectacles on myself.
Yeah.
But if you open up regulations, that gives a great deal. If the regulations are so open that there's literally anything you can do, as long as you say like, the car has to fit into this imaginary box, and obviously it has to pass the crash tests and all that stuff. And after that, you've got 100 kilos of fuel, and see you on Friday morning. Then you're going to end up with 1970s F1, where every car looks different because there's no regulation to say what it should look like.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have a diffuser that's this big. It doesn't have to have a front wing that's this big. It'll be all over the place. You could have an airbox. You have a big Teapot Ligier 1976 airbox on one of them.
That was the thing that came to mind when you said 1970s F1, actually.
Right, but then equally, you could have a car like an '88 Benetton, where the air intakes are down by the driver's shoulders.
Yeah. Like a fighter jet.
Yeah, and it'd be so obvious like which car is which. Whereas right now it's not that obvious. I mean, obviously the liveries are different, but looking at the shape of the car, they look largely the same, and they're not. They look better this season with the wider car, but still they're not exactly lookers, are they? I mean, they look like they've been punched on the nose, frankly. I mean, they're not 1991 McLarens. They ain't. in terms of gorgeousness. They're not 1967 Ferraris. No, don't think so. Sorry, they look better, but we're still work in progress.
Yeah, I think at the moment it's a case of if you ask a child to draw a Formula One car, they wouldn't draw one of this year's.
No,
and you notice actually one of the things that irritates me is that when promos are made about Formula One, they always use the old engine noise.
Yeah.
What are we selling people?
And
We're
also
basically
in
saying,
adverts as well. All adverts that involve Formula One tyres or fuel or whatever, and they all use the old engine noise.
Yeah, and so basically we're saying is what it is right now is terrible. Okay, we're not even gonna pretend to you that it's in any way good. We've given up on that concept. It's crap. Let's put the old engine noise in, and that says all you need to say about it. You know, if you ever heard that phrase that a man with no future always runs to his past, and that's Formula One has that problem. You know, just these engines are phenomenal, but they don't really get the pulse going, do they? You know, when you hear a Matra V12 being fired up, you think, yes, here we go,
Bone rattler.
This is why I came here.
Yeah, there was a hill climb over here a few years ago, and somebody was running a Matra in there, and you felt that thing from the start line when you were about half a mile away.
Right. Now that it should be a visceral experience. It should be. You see that, you know, the car, when you see it, you should think that car looks fast without moving. And then when it starts, you should think this car scares me and it hasn't moved yet.
Yeah.
And then when it eventually moves, the earth should shake and you should just feel like you need to have a cigarette after it's gone past. You know.
I would say like the results of a good bass solo, but as I'm talking to a drummer and two guitarists, I'm not going to get away with that one, am I?
I don't know. Well, there's something to be said about good bass solos. There's an underrated part of rock music.
Yes. I'm very happy when they've gone past.
The problem is that bass solos are often left in the hands of people who should not be left alone with bass solos. That's the
bassists.
You get a proper bassist in there to do it, and then you go in places.
Talking of the hill climb, just going back to what Paul said before, there is, Sean, somewhere on YouTube, and I'm sure you can go and have a look at this as soon as you finish talking to us, on YouTube, the clip of a hill climb here on the Isle of Man where somebody brought over a heart-powered Formula One Jordan, and it's raining, and he's taking it up this hill climb on slick tyres.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, it's brave, put it that way.
Yeah, that's the definition of F1 and terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, I was more thinking suicide pact.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
It's like life insurance payout. What was it? Just make it look like an accident. You know?
Well, I've no idea. I'm sure no insurance would have covered any sort of Formula One car to do a hill climb, a privately owned Formula One car to do a hill climb with its Formula One engine on slick tyres in the wet. I don't think that's a thing.
Did he get to the top?
I think so, yeah. Not very quick because it was on slick tyres, but even still.
Yeah, well, still, good.
But the sound was still there. That's the thing. It was still that sound of that. I think it was a V10 Hart engine, and it's just, yeah. It's the bone rattler. You feel it in your chest, long before the car goes past you.
Yeah. Well, it was a 3.5 litre back then, of course, so it had. There's no replacement for displacement, as they say.
Well, there you go.
That is great. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Sean. I know we're taking quite a lot of your time, and you are doing some serious training at the moment, as everyone that's been following your story on Instagram today will be able to see.
Yeah, you can also...
Yes, we didn't even mention that. Instagram. Everybody follow me on Instagram @VirtualStatman. It's great, honestly. It's fabulous. It will change your life for the better.
Well, you get to see 3 countries in the space of a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. You get to see mindless waffle. If you want to follow me while I talk about Formula One, go to Twitter @VirtualStatman. If you want to follow me while I'm doing the lifestyles of the rich and famous cheap knockoff of Lewis Hamilton, follow me on Instagram @VirtualStatman.
Do you have your own lift that you take selfies in, just like Lewis does?
I don't. I probably shouldn't I? And I should also have a cameraman following me, and I also need to perfect the art of pretending I'm not taking a selfie. You know that thing that people do, when they look out, they look off into the mid distance, like
they're pretending someone hasn't seen them with the camera, but it's actually them holding the camera.
It's actually them taking the picture. One of my personal pet hates. In fact, I'm going to put that on my list of hates right now. I do actually have a list of hates, which is very, very important to me. There's all sorts of things I think you'd love it, like things like there's neck tattoos, man buns, every record by James Taylor, pepperoni, Snapchat, Kanye West fax machines, tapas bumper stickers, dark chocolate, duck face and scissor hand, people who use calculus to work out the restaurant tab, and people who give me encouragement while they're competing in the same race as me. I want to slap them. There's a long list.
Do you know what? All legitimate apart from pepperoni.
Yeah,
and dark chocolate.
Tea Nazis. Why people in America telling me how to make tea? What is my accent conflicting with you in some way? But you need to tell me how to make tea. What's that about? So it's like me telling you how to make a burger. Yeah, there's all sorts of things on this list. They're like Bluetooth over-the-ear phone mics. They've got to go. Christmas music at any point. Wearing sunglasses indoors and the heat retention properties of cheese. This is just things we don't get into. Oh, and public address. And the last thing, public address announcers who shout. That idiot at Wembley Stadium who always yells at you. It's like we paid 50.
You've got a microphone.
Yeah, we can hear you. It's working. Yeah. Shut up. Calm the fuck down. Sorry.
Oh, Sean swearing on our podcast is fine. We swear all the time.
He's not allowed to do that on NBC.
No, he's not. No swearing.
Televisions above fireplaces. That's another thing. Who's come up with that? That's a chiropractor's dream right there. That's how they get you.
I love it. Very good.
You're going to have to come on the Patreon show that we do one day, and we'll expand on the list because we do an extra non-Formula One show for all our Patreon subscribers,
just so we can afford to keep the show running.
It's always been an ambition of mine to appear on that show, Grumpy Old Men.
That's basically what our Patreon show is.
Yeah. See, I've got all sorts of material for that, just lying in wait forever the day I become even slightly famous.
Well, we think you're as a member now of the ACM and Formula One Statman, you're pretty much there.
Oh, hello! I'm a member of the Automobile Club de Monaco.
How do we introduce you? Lord Statman.
His Serene Highness Lord Statman.
Hello.
Yes.
How now, brown cow? All that stuff.
Sean, thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome, as always.
Yeah. Always a pleasure when you come on here, and no doubt we'll speak to you again very soon.
All right, good night, and happy tax avoidance.
And to you as well for the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
See you later.
Thanks a lot, Sean.
Bye.
See ya.
It is always good to get Sean on the show, and just want to wish him luck with the triathlon that he's got coming up.
Always, yeah.
Yeah. And moving on from there, Singapore this weekend.
It is.
An Asian race in a European time.
Yeah, night race around the streets of Singapore. We saw what a massive advantage Mercedes had over Ferrari in Monza, and I spoke last week about the imposing side-by-side victory parade in Ferrari's heartland.
Mercedes are already talking down their chances in Singapore.
Which means they're either going to be awesome or really terrible.
Normally means, whenever a team talks down how good their chances are, it means they're going to be dominant.
Hasn't Toto Wolff said that it will basically be...
Do the accent.
It will be a mountainous challenge to try and take stop Sebastian from taking the lead of the title again.
That is pretty much what he said and how he said it.
Yeah.
Which generally would mean that they're going to absolutely wipe the floor with Ferrari. But Singapore traditionally hasn't been a good Mercedes circuit, has it?
No.
Not really, no.
They tend to have struggled. I think Hamilton's won there as a Mercedes driver. I don't know if Rosberg did. Can't bring it to mind if he did. But usually it's the nature of the circuit, lots of 90-degree turns, quite twisty. It lends itself to traditional sort of Ferrari and Red Bull makeup of car. Makes
Right, Hamilton
Makes
and Vettel have both won there in their current teams.
Oh no, yeah, Vettel's won there. Yeah, I didn't know if Rosberg had won there before.
Rosberg won last year's.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the last three winners: Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, Nico Rosberg. Before that, 3 Sebastian Vettel wins in a Red Bull.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, you know,
But it's never been a dominant Mercedes circuit, has it?
No, because they always seem to they struggle with point and squirt,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of this circuit is.
and also you do tend to come upon traffic quite quickly, despite the fact it's a long circuit. The field does tend to draw itself out quite quickly.
Yeah.
You get the gaps, and within
And as we know, it's very easy to find yourself out of position and benefiting from a safety car, however that may be.
wink, Fernando Alonso wins the race.
If Alonso manages to win this week, obviously with Stoffel in a wall or something, does that mean we don't do a sad Alonso next week's show?
We do a happy Alonso.
Nah,
That'd be amazing.
Happy
it'd be great to do a happy Alonso.
I'd like to do a happy Alonso.
Do you know what? We're not going to do one this year.
Well, we might do. We might do a happy Alonso when it's just like, see you later, Honda. You know, the last race of the season. You know, he decides to turn his engine up, and for once it doesn't break.
Nah, can't say that happening. Want to thank everyone for the feedback on the sad Alonso, and apparently everyone loves it.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. I mean, it was sort of an off the cuff sort of idea that we had.
And we're stuck with it now.
Yeah, we are.
So that means you are as well. While we're on with McLaren, I'm going to get this out of the way now. Honda still don't know if Van Dorn's going to get engine penalties or not this weekend.
Ooh.
It'd be a shame if he did, because you got to think this is going to be a fairly good circuit for McLaren.
Well, the reason that they took all the engine penalties in Italy was because this was going to be a good circuit for McLaren. But it may have backfired on them because
Well, they blew up both their cars in Italy.
well, this is going back to the Friday engine that Stoffel had, which was the 3.7 spec engine which they added to put into the pool. But the MG UK shaft broke on it, so they replaced it
With the whole power unit.
the whole power unit with a spec 3.6.
Yeah.
Where the MG UK shaft broke on it. So they've got this 3.7 spec engine, but they don't know if they can repair the broken part.
Well, they said in Italy it would be easier to replace the whole power unit.
It would be quicker and probably safer. And as it turned out, it was much quicker because they still don't know if they can actually repair the part.
Yeah, which has been like 3 weeks now. Well, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, and they don't know if they'll be able to do it on time. So Stoffel could be getting another 35 places.
Qualifying is pretty important in Singapore.
As Sean said.
But he didn't say it on the podcast, so I was going to sound all statty there by saying last 3 years, the people who've qualified in first, second and third have finished first, second and third.
Yes.
So, yeah, qualifying is important. It's no good if you don't get a good start, though. I mean, look at Nico Hülkenberg last year.
Yeah, he ended up in the wall.
Didn't he cross the start line partially backwards?
I think so, yeah.
He was classified ahead of Roman Grosjean, though. I'm not entirely sure how.
Roman Grosjean didn't start.
Oh, no, he didn't start. His brakes failed on his outlap.
Was it a brake fail on his outlap, or he definitely? I think he pulled in at the end of the formation lap.
Yes, and Hülkenberg may or may not have made it to the start line, or one of his wheels might have crossed it.
Yeah. So, yeah, Singapore, as we've already said, tight track. It's warm. You know, the race is held at night time, but it is warm in Singapore. You know, really, really warm.
Yeah, you're still getting European daytime air temperatures.
Yeah, Danny Ricciardo has said that he will quite easily down 5 litres of water. 5 litres post-race to rehydrate himself.
I think we're going to hear knackered Lewis again this week because Lewis doesn't like having too much water in the car, and that's why he always sounds completely shagged out, especially on hotter circuits. And he's going to do that again this time.
Possibly, yeah.
Because his personal trainer, himself,
Yeah,
thinks it's a good idea.
Yeah, Lewis is his own personal trainer.
And this weekend, I think, own worst enemy.
Well, it could be. I wonder if that could be a factor, in the title that we do have quite a few warm races, and Lewis being his own personal trainer, and we have heard him a little bit out of breath
Not for a little while though.
No, but in the hotter races, we've been in the European season. They're not hot races, are they?
But
So-
when it's been the hotter races at the start of the season,
Yeah,
he sounded
He
shagged
was.
out.
he was definitely sounding a bit out of breath.
Yeah. So yeah, is he going to do that again?
Possibly. That might be a good bet.
Mm.
Might not be though. Don't listen to us. We don't
Yeah,
know
I was
what we're
gonna
talking
say it might be a good bet, but if we've said it, it probably isn't.
No.
Working through the grid, Sauber, yeah, they are going to participate in the weekend at certain points.
Yeah.
Even if they qualify, or because of grid penalties, they end up further up the grid than they should be. Over the course of the race, they will find themselves at the back. They will be the first cars to be lapped, and they'll be they're on the circuit, but they're done with this year.
Yeah. Toro Rosso will be an interesting proposition because there's a lot depends on aero. We'll get to see what the developments have been like on what was meant to be a great aero package that turned out not exactly to be.
Well, that's the thing.
So I think we'll see this weekend. We'll see what shows what Toro Rosso are going to be like for the rest of the year,
maybe.
depending on who's driving the car.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this circuit is sort of the last of the real twisty circuits before the end of the season. I mean, Brazil, Sao Paulo is quite twisty.
Half of Japan.
Yeah, but you've got your foot down there as well whilst you're going through the twisty sections.
And the bits of Malaysia that aren't the two main straights. But apart from those,
But again, you've got
the main straights.
Yeah,
Yeah, but you've got your foot down as well. When you're going through the twisty bits of
Yeah.
Malaysia, that first S bend, you've got your foot down in. This is the last chance saloon for teams like Toro Rosso, who are supposed to have great aero package, McLaren, who are supposed to have a great aero package. So, yeah, I mean, it's their last chance to score good points.
I think the fast twisty sections will help the teams that have good aero packages. Because if you're in slow twisty sections, then you're not getting much effect from the air.
But as has been the case so far this year, Toro Rosso and McLaren have been good in the corners, slower corners, rather than the faster corners. I mean,
Hungary's fast and twisty, isn't it?
ish, yeah, I suppose so. McLaren did okay there.
Yeah.
tough one to call. Renault, I think no one's going to give a damn about how they do. It's going to be all focused on Sainz, Palmer. Is it Palmer's last race? Who's going to be driving the car?
But Renault have been getting better and better.
Yeah, which I think if all the attention is focused on the other half of the garage, this is going to be a great chance for Hülkenberg to just get his head down and get on with it.
To really score that podium.
Yeah.
And not take that record from Adrian Sutil.
Yeah. I think Hülkenberg has a chance to do well because there won't be as much focus on him. Because all the Renault focus is going to be on who's not going to be in the car either in 2 weeks' time or in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
And maybe he does better when he's left alone.
Possibly.
Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. It could be that actually works for him as well as it works for Kimi.
Maybe. Because he doesn't
Although Kimi never won Le Mans.
by himself.
By himself.
Yeah.
Backwards. On the skateboard that he outqualified Marcus Ericsson on. You mentioned Kimi. Ferrari. They need a big weekend.
They do, because they need to reassert their title credentials for the rest of the year. If they don't manage to do that, then there's an issue going forward from Singapore, in that, if Mercedes take the points off them again, in Singapore, Ferrari are then badly damaged.
The battle won't be over, but it won't look good, will it?
No. I mean, we're all expecting Ferrari to be resurgent, should we say, in Singapore.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then we can.
I think losing Ferrari it's just a flesh wound. Although, to be honest, if it's losing Ferrari, Sergio Marchionne will go around and cut people's heads off. Actually, figuratively.
As long as he doesn't get arrested for littering again.
No, that was Arriva Bene.
It was Arriva
that
Bene
was Arriva Bene,
that dumped his sig butts on the floor.
And got fined on the spot, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, Singapore's a very strange place because chewing gum's banned.
Yeah.
Spitting is
illegal
and punishable by a fine. And you've got to get rid of your sig butts. Friend of mine who's been, I think I said this time last year, said it's the cleanest place that he's been to that doesn't start with the word Disney.
Which is impressive. I've been to a few European places that are incredibly clean, but never been to Singapore. So
I've been to Disneyland. That was very clean.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the subject in hand, not a sig butt because that was on the floor. I'll get me coat. Yeah, Ferrari do need this bit. This has got to be a big one for them.
Yeah, and they've got to get it right. I don't think they can. Well, with Dan saying that Mercedes are sort of downplaying their chances already, don't be fooled into thinking that they're we'll settle for third and fourth, because they won't. They will be trying their damnedest to get the perfect setup for their car. They might even go something a little bit left field, in that they could choose a higher downforce to help them get round the slightly tighter corners, if you will, a bit quicker. It's Mercedes' main power is in the straights. That's where they've got the advantage.
Yeah.
As was shown in Monza. They don't get to show that an awful lot in Singapore. Yeah, there are a few straights. But
then there's a lot of heavy braking zones and some chicanes in there and some 90-degree corners.
And if they're not first and second into that first corner, Mercedes don't like following.
Yeah.
So
what Ferrari have to do is, to be honest, they have to have two drivers on the podium, and one of them has to be higher on the podium than a Mercedes driver.
Yes.
Or at least one of them has to be further up than a Mercedes driver.
I wonder if this is Kimi's time to shine. I don't think he'd be allowed to, would he? If Kimi and Sebastian were running 1-2.
I don't think Kimi winning is good for Ferrari.
No.
If they were running 1-2, no. If they were running 1-3, Kimi would win by merit and default at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there's no way they could swap them. Not without compromising both the races, because they could easily turn a 1-3 into a 2-3 by letting Vettel past.
Yeah,
and that would blow it. You've got to take into account as well. It's more than likely we'll see a safety car. All joking aside,
will we see rain?
Well,
Never seen rain during the race,
yet.
But it's during a rainy season in Singapore.
We'll see a safety car because regardless of somebody sticking it in a wall, someone's going to break down.
Probably Jolyon Palmer.
I think Renault have installed the fire in his car already.
And maybe Alonso or Van Dorn.
I don't know, because they can usually get the cars back to the pits. I was thinking Verstappen.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
or somebody breaking down on circuit. You always see it at Singapore, don't you? Much like Canada and Monaco. The barriers start the weekend bright colours because of sponsors, and then on the exits of corners, they're all blackened by the streaks of tyres that have.
Yeah.
I'm going to say somebody inexperienced, perhaps Lance Stroll,
getting a little bit too close and giving them a bit of a brushing.
Yeah.
We get to see that more in Singapore, and we get to see the sparks as well.
Sparks off the wall
with it being dark.
Yeah.
You know, that's always an interesting thing to see, and the fuel flares.
Yeah, you can
out of the exhaust.
Yeah, you can always give the walls a little touch and a little scrape here and there, but it's when you give them a knock and they split your wheel rim that your race is ruined.
Yeah,
That you cannot do. I think Haas will probably have a difficult race.
Yeah, I think they'll just be. I think we'll see both drivers doing the same this week, but unfortunately, I think we'll see both drivers being a little bit nondescript.
Yeah, Force India, I'm expecting them to be.
They
I'm-
could be a bit descript.
Yeah, I think
I'm going Haas 12th and 13th.
Yeah.
Ooh, finishing together. That's
Yeah,
unusual.
that's what I mean. We'll see them do the same thing this week.
I think Force India, we could end up with a Force India double points finish again.
It'll either be a double points finish or
Double
Bob
retirement.
Bob Fernley will be banging their heads together.
Yeah.
I think they're going for the split strategy thing at every race, aren't they now?
I think they're gonna have to just
So
to make
that-
sure that the only time they're on the same bit of track is at the start and at the finish.
Yeah.
And yeah, apparently they still can race each other within certain constraints. Those constraints being a 20-foot exclusion zone from the other car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, being told to pull over for the faster Force India or...
Yeah, or please don't hit him.
Yeah. Williams, Massa usually performs quite well at Singapore, did do in his Ferrari days.
He was a bit anonymous last year. I can't remember where he finished.
No, I can't.
I'm gonna have to look it up, aren't I?
Left-handed Googling. But the inexperience of Lance Stroll at such a tough circuit like Singapore.
12th, one lap down.
12th, one lap down.
Yeah.
Lance Stroll. It's not too. It's a nighttime version of the race at Azerbaijan, and he did extremely well at Azerbaijan.
Yeah. I think he could do all right.
Yeah.
We're seeing a more settled Lance Stroll now.
Yeah.
He's got a lot more confidence. The time that he spent obviously with the older cars on circuits, it just goes to prove that track time is what young drivers need. That's what all drivers need. It's just that the more experienced drivers have had the more track time in the races. But
And of course, he beat Massa in Italy.
yeah,
And
you
that's,
cannot take
that's
that
the
away
first
from
time
him.
that he's beaten Massa.
I mean, Stroll went backwards, Massa came forwards, but I mean, they finished quite close to each other. But Stroll was ahead.
Stroll had to go backwards. He was ahead of much faster cars.
Yeah, he was ahead of both Ferraris, another Mercedes, Force
Yeah.
India, and even managed to get past him. So
Yeah, he was out of position, but he finished where he was capable of finishing.
Yeah.
but we believe that Williams don't have perhaps the aero package that they might have had. We tend to think, after discussions on previous podcasts, that other teams have developed their aero strategy, and Williams just haven't really, and they tend to drop back on circuits like this. I mean, look at.
I don't know. Baku is very point and squirt.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, you can't really sort of do a comparison between last year's race and this year's race as well when it comes to Williams, because of course we had Bottas's incredibly weird retirement, where the car overheated in the pits because there was a problem with the seatbelts.
Yeah.
I remember that
Because
yeah.
they had to hold him in the pits too long while they basically fastened him back in because the seatbelts had come loose.
And his car
And his car overheated in the time that it took. He managed to get out, I think he did another lap,
and then they pull
and
him
then they
in
had to pull him back
retire.
in because he just fried everything from being sat stationary for so long. It's like the brakes being on fire on the Force India
Yeah.
for Perez when he was held in the pits for too long.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we saw that in Raikkonen's case, didn't we? In pit stop in Italy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where he thought they'd let him go too early,
Yeah.
and they were saying, "No, we had to put out the fire."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
So-
anything done about that? Was that an unsafe release?
I think they decided on balance it was the safest thing to do because
Because bad.
because fire.
Yeah, in pit lane.
Yeah.
It's bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
So that leaves us with Mercedes, effectively. Yeah, just I don't know. They are downplaying it hugely.
I've got a sneaky suspicion that Bottas might do a much better job than Lewis Hamilton, and could play a vital part in helping Lewis Hamilton this weekend.
He was Lewis was alarmingly off the pace in qualifying last year. I mean, okay, Rosberg did a special lap.
Yeah,
Rosberg did a Lewis last year, didn't
Yeah.
he?
But Lewis was 7/10 behind
Wow.
in third. Ricardo was closest, and he was still over half a second down on Rosberg.
Yeah, it's a special lap by Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, probably the best qualifying performance he put in all last season. But yeah, Lewis was just off the pace. Wasn't fastest in any of the 3 sessions.
Which is rare, usually, for Lewis. But, you know, he is fighting for a title, but he was last year as
I was
well.
going to say
Yeah.
he was fighting for a title this time last year.
Yeah.
He was in the lead at this point last year because it was only after Malaysia, where his engine blew up,
Yeah.
that Rosberg took it back.
No, the classic. Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, for me, was the turning point of the title last year.
Mm.
Whether we'll see another turning point in the next couple of weeks before the closing races, I'm not sure. We shall see.
Yeah, but I
So-
think it's going to be a good one. Right, top three.
threes?
Top threes. I am going to go Vettel, Hamilton, Ricciardo.
Dan?
I think just because of the way Mercedes are downplaying their chances, Hamilton, Bottas, Ricardo.
Well, that's brave. No Ferrari on the top 3.
I reckon Ricardo's going to have the kind of good luck that gets Ricardo on the podium in
Yeah.
lots of races this year.
Happy Ricardo.
Happy Ricardo.
Yeah.
He's always happy.
Well, most of the time. I'm going to go Vettel, Bottas, Hamilton.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hero and villain?
Hero is going to be Danny Rick again. Coming from a position that he shouldn't be in to finish in a position that he probably shouldn't be in. He's just got that knack, hasn't he? And
Yeah.
it's hard
Yeah.
to disagree with Dan that he gets the luck, and the thing is, when he gets the luck, he doesn't waste his opportunity, does he? The opportunity presents itself to him, and he always takes it. He never, or very rarely, does the opportunity present itself to Danny Ricciardo and he throws it away.
He's like the anti-Jolyon Palmer.
Yeah, yeah, he is a bit. Villain, I think the Mercedes team. For I think what we'll see doing is you'll see Bottas backing up Raikkonen so that Hamilton can get past and into a podium place, and then they get it. I'm gonna say they get it a bit wrong, and Bottas doesn't let Hamilton past in time because Raikkonen's too close behind them.
My hero, I'm going for Max Verstappen because he's going to coax the car round in a completely uneventful race where nothing goes wrong. He doesn't do anything spectacular because he daren't, and he finishes in the top 6.
I'd love it to rain though. I'll be honest.
Oh yeah.
A night race in the rain. Come on, who doesn't want that?
Charlie Whiting?
Charlie Whiting
Because
can
it
shut
would
up.
be red flag pretty quick.
No, it wouldn't.
I don't know. Can you imagine the floodlights shining on the spray
They've got
And-
drainage.
and how difficult that's going to be to see?
It's all right. They got clear visors.
Yes, because they've got X-ray capabilities. Villain, not one specific one, but whoever is the first team to have a car break down on the circuit that brings a safety car out and buggers up all the interesting battles that we'll have going by that point.
Because
Oh,
that can nullify.
Yeah, will that bugger up the battles, or will that make it all more
Yeah,
interesting?
because it can nullify a pit strategy, or if you're clever enough to have pitted like a lap before a safety car,
Who would do that sort of thing?
Fernando Alonso.
Well, last year, if I remember right, didn't we have a safety car fairly near the end, which led to Danny Rick doing a charge where it looked
Looked like he might
could
win at one point.
Yes, you might be right. There isn't a full review of
So,
it on there.
so the safety car could be the hero.
So we're going for Bernd Mailander as the hero.
But Mylander could be the hero.
Or the villain, or both.
Oh,
Well, talking of safety cars, what do we think of that new Mercedes AMG? What's it called? Project One. It's the road car that's going to have a power ratio of 1-to-1 with a Formula One car.
I'd quite like one, though I'm not sure how much shopping you can fit in it.
If
Probably
Sean,
not
if
a
Sean
lot.
Todt and Charlie Whiting don't go halves on 2, one for the safety car, one for the medical car, then
Well, that's what I'm saying. The safety car. You know, how we'll always hear it, don't we? Vettel, if he's leading behind safety car, this car is too slow. Oh.
it's Lewis's favourite as well.
And
In
Lewis
fa-
as
in-
well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, in fairness, there's been some times when the safety car's gone out and it's been too slow, use a jet ski.
Yeah.
Yeah, a faster safety car would be good. I still like the idea of getting the safety car to bunch everyone up and then having a virtual safety car, so you've got all the cars in a similar part of the track.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Of course,
Lee argued with this, but he's not here, so I'm saying it again.
what
Yeah.
we don't know is when the safety cars go in, what the drivers are saying is too slow. Whether that's because the safety car's
reasons.
limited by the ability of the car, or because Burt Mylander thinks that is the best speed to be going at.
Or Bernd Mailander is being told to go at that speed to do a lap in a certain time to give Marshall's
time
chance to clear the track or get off the track or give them enough warning when the safety car's within 10 seconds of where they are, so
I
they've
mean,
got
Formula
to clear.
One drivers get given a delta, don't they, to get to each section of the circuit.
Yeah.
How do we know that the FIA or somebody doesn't give the similar delta to Burt Mylander? So he's got screen. He thinks, "Whoa, hang on a second! I got through that last section a little bit too quick. Best knock a couple of seconds off this sector."
Mm.
And that's when you hear the drivers going, "It's going too slow." Which I can understand, but it does sound horrifically whiny when Hamilton comes on. He's like, "Come on, man, speed the safety car up, man." It's like, well, if they could speed the safety car up, they would. But it's a safety car, Lewis.
Yeah.
It's
Come
not
on.
a dangerous car.
No, exactly. Quick, bring out the danger car.
That was Maldonado in the Lotus. Here's a prediction for this weekend. How many times are we going to hear the resumption of Vettel's Blue Flag song? I think it's
yes.
due a revival.
As race leader, as I think he will be at one point, probably at the end as well.
I think we are going to hear a lot of
Yeah.
Blue Flag.
Especially if he's leading.
Yeah.
If he's leading and there's a Mercedes chasing him, it's not Ferrari 1-2, then yeah, we will definitely hear the "Come on,
Blue
where are
flag,
these blue
blue
flags?"
flag.
And then I think it'd be more of an angry gangster rap than a song.
And an extra potential villain. If McLaren are as good as they've been bigging up on this circuit, and Alonso has a good race, and is fairly light-hearted and chatty on the radio to the pit wall, he's going to be the villain because it means we won't have a sad Fernando next week.
Oh, we'll do something else.
It doesn't have to be sad Fernando,
Yeah, but they are best.
Sad Fernando's good, but I mean, if
Yeah, but we haven't had a chance to do Angry Vettel yet.
Angry Vettel would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angry Vettel would be a good one to do. Confused Kimi, like the Azerbaijan pit radio. Where, someone tell me to give him.
Give me the steering wheel. Give me the steering wheel.
Hey, someone tell him. Hey, give me. Come on.
I'm sure we will have some form of radio remix for next week. Right, what's next on the list? We have, well, it says Total Shunt,
Well, yes,
but a Total Shunt isn't with us this week.
no, he's not.
So
Who's a flood?
Chris has prepared this one. So I'm gonna christen this section. Who's flooded their engine?
Oh,
Clever.
well, that kind of works, I suppose, on a kind of level. I have it ready in front of me here.
Right. Who sent this one in? I believe it's young Christopher Flood from Douglas.
Yes, that would be me. Of course,
Age 12.
yeah.
All-
Everybody,
All his own work.
yeah. I'm not age 12 though. That was a long time ago since I was 12. But when I found out, we only found out, let's be honest, earlier today, late notice that Lee wasn't going to be able to make the podcast tonight. So I've cobbled this together. You've got 10 clues, and it works under the same rules as Total Shunt, and hopefully I can do Lee proud. I'm sure he'll listen back to this just to make sure that his game hasn't been
completely screwed up.
Yes.
So is this the point where we bring Sean back?
So I'm really sorry if you've sent a Total Shunt into Lee for this week. Hopefully, we'll get it back on Total Shunt duties next week. But for clue 1, and in traditional Total Shunt style, I was born in 1966.
Okay, so 50 or 51.
Yes. That covers a few drivers,
yes,
riders, motorsports personalities.
Yes. So I think clue 2 would be a good idea round about now.
I have competed in many four-wheeled racing disciplines.
That covers a lot of drivers too.
Yes.
So somebody 50 who's 50 or 51 that's done a lot of
four-wheeled
driving stuff rather than riding stuff.
Yes.
So for four-wheeled, we could be looking at things like touring cars, rallies, endurance,
quad bike racing,
stock cars, NASCAR,
rallycross.
Yeah. Oh, it could be NASCAR. Are you Billy Bob Jim Joe Mahoney the
Well, careful now, because no more than 3 guesses. Well, you have to make
that wasn't a proper guess. I didn't get the full name in.
You have to discuss your first guess after this clue. Clue number 3. I made it to Formula 1 with the help of my world champion manager.
World champion manager. So someone who was taken under the wing of a F1, I'm assuming F1 world champion.
Or a world champion at something.
Yeah.
Tiddlywinks or managing or...
I know where you're trying to head us with this, and I think we can rule out Damon Hill. Plus, I think he's older than 51. I think he's about 55, isn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Johnny Herbert's about the right age.
Who helped him into the sport?
I don't know, and I've seen the Johnny Herbert story God knows how many times.
So much so that you switch off now.
Yeah, so much so that I've now blocked it from my memory. Really not sure about this. But we're looking for someone round about that era, aren't we? The sort of came through late 80s to mid 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're looking for someone who's going to have been 20 in 86.
Which was a bit too young to start in F1 then, but maybe...
Then, so call it 1990
start. Which, round about the time possibly for Jan Magnussen.
Or Jos Verstappen.
Ah.
Of course, I don't know who their managers were.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I think we're in with a good shout with one of those. We'll go with Jos. We'll go first guess, Jos Verstappen.
Okay, that's you go with your first guess. Are you happy with that, Dan?
Yeah.
Well, he came up with it. He should be
as happy as I can be.
Okay. Number 4. I have been a winner in a McLaren.
I think that rules out Jos Verstappen.
Yes. And I think it also rules out Jan Magnussen. He drove one, but I don't think he won in it.
Might get you stumped by the next clue then. My highest finish in F1 was 3rd.
Oh, crap. So it's McLaren in something else.
IndyCar?
Not between 1975 and 2017.
Right, so what else do they race in?
Have they had like a F3000 team in the past? or Formula 2, but then again, Formula 2 wouldn't have been a thing then.
Can you repeat the question?
My highest finish in F1 was third. And do you want the one before that?
Yes, please.
I have been a winner in a McLaren.
Yeah, this is tough, because I know McLaren must have been in another series. Would you have got like a McLaren tuned Porsche in what is now WEC? I suppose it been the World Sports Car Championships back then.
I have no idea.
And I do know that Jan Magnussen has, fairly sure that Jan Magnussen has driven sports cars. So
Okay, shall we?
I think we
stick
get
with Jan
Magnussen.
Magnussen.
Well,
for now?
do we have another?
We got another one.
Got another clue before the next guess.
And the clues start getting a little bit more transparent, as I think they should do with
I'm bloody glad about that.
Total Shunt. 6.
Yep.
Throughout my racing career, my teammates include Yannick Dalmas, Pierluigi Martini, and Michael Schumacher.
So we're looking at Yannick Dalmas, Pierluigi Martini, and Michael Schumacher. I think we are possibly looking at someone who has driven for Jordan. I don't know why. I've just got.
Could we be back to Johnny Herbert?
Oh, Schumacher and Herbert were teammates at Benetton for a while, weren't they? Yannick Dalmas, I seem to recall, was all about.
No, we're not
back into
not
the
on Johnny
parade.
Herbert because he won.
He's won races.
He's won in Formula One.
Yeah. JJ Leto, who is Finnish and would have been mentored by Keke Rosberg, who was a world champion.
And then went on to America, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
McLaren in the Can-Am series, maybe, or something. Okay, should we go for that for our second guess?
Let's go with that.
Yeah, JJ Leto.
Okay. Number 7. I suffered a broken neck and back whilst testing a Formula 1 car. Injuries I never fully recovered from.
I think we've got it. I'm pretty sure that's him. And the next one?
I returned from these injuries to race at the ill-fated 1994 San Marino Grand Prix.
When my wheel came off. No, he stalled on the grid, and that's what caused the safety. That's what caused the safety car. I think it is.
I had a bad boating accident in Finland, which killed my friend and nearly killed me.
So it's possibly someone Finnish,
Yes.
like
JJ Leto.
And final clue?
Should we just go for it before? Is the final clue in Lee's words the Spaffer clue?
No, not
Oh,
really.
okay.
My name had to be shortened as it was thought too hard to pronounce.
Are you JJ Leto?
Yes, I am JJ Leto.
Get in.
Good work, Paul.
We're back. That was a good one, Chris.
I thought it was an interesting one.
So, if you have a total shunt that you want to send in, send it to Lee, or if Lee's not going to be here, we'll let you know in advance. And if you want to send in a who's flooded their engine, send it to Chris. I think that's what it may have to be called now when you do it.
When I do it, who's flooded their engine?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
We'll move on. This is the Lee section. He's not even here.
Formula
Lee. We're in Singapore in a Mercedes in the dry, just like the WTF1 hot lap challenge that they've started running.
Yeah, they've
Who are
literally
they?
just started doing that.
I've no idea. I mean,
Where would they get these ideas from?
I don't know. I mean, FF1S. People are just ripping us off constantly. See what I did there?
I did.
No.
Oh, that's all right then. No, because I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything inflammatory. Yeah, it's Singapore in a Mercedes for the Formula Lee Challenge this week in the dry. You're looking at the low 138s for big points at the minute. The best time that we've had in is from Karl Jarzec, who did a 138.012. That's the fastest I've seen at the moment. There may be more. Send them in to us via email at 3legs4wheels@gmail.com.
Yep.
Or you can tweet us at 3legs4wheels.
Or at Danbert.
At Flood21.
And at Pablo100. Send your Formula Lead Time in on a direct message on Twitter. Or on Facebook, facebook.com/3legs4wheels. Send it in a private message on there as well. Mailbag. For other people getting in touch. You got something?
I was going to say, should we talk about the extra prize, or do we want to save that until next week?
Let's save that until
save
next
that till
week.
next week. 'Cause it's a big announcement, and I think it should be a show when all four of us are here.
I can't argue with that. That's fine. We'll wait until next week.
Because Lee doesn't know this yet, and it would be nice for us to sort of tell him.
It's a prize that we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. It's a big prize. It's now looking a lot more likely than it was a couple of weeks ago.
Now we've just got to find a way of how we give it away.
Distributing it, yes.
But it's something that, without giving away too much, it's something that every Formula One fan would want or be able to find room for.
I think so.
Yeah. I would say so.
I would definitely. I can see a space on the shelf where I'd clear some quiz trophies to put it there.
Perhaps.
Actually, only one of those trophies up there is a quiz trophy. The other ones are Sean's stock car racing trophies.
Oh, there you go.
That is, so if we get a motorsport thing up there, then that can be the motorsport shelf of fame.
Yes.
Rather than we've got one big quiz trophy that we don't know what to do
give
with.
away too much just yet.
But no, it's something that you would want to put on a shelf. Just one thing on the mailbag this week, because not many people have sent stuff through, because we genuinely have been all over the place and not had a chance to look.
So people might have sent stuff through, but we've not read it.
I don't think I've seen a great deal, and I can't find the right bloody email account. It's been a long week.
It's Monday.
Yes. Tim Martin sent us a message through Patreon, which will
Hi,
tell
Tim.
how
Hello,
you
Tim.
can subscribe. And it's a Patreon question from a Patreon, but it's not about the Patreon.
Is it? I was going to say, is it for the Patreon podcast or?
No, it's an F1 question.
Okay.
From one of our patrons. Tim wants to know, at what point do we start wondering if the problem with Verstappen's car is Verstappen himself? No one else in a Renault unit has as many failures. Palmer. Ricciardo has had some great results this year and pushes it like crazy. Would it be possible that Verstappen is shifting improperly somehow and causing these failures?
It's driving style, I think, more than anything. We have pondered on the fact as to whether driving style causes more failures than, perhaps other drivers' preferred form of driving.
You've got to think, though, that Red Bull and Mercedes and Renault,
they've got the telemetry.
That they will have investigated the shit out of this.
Oh yeah, they will have they'll have the telemetry in front of them. When we say telemetry, that's essentially every sensor on the car sends feedback to computers in the garage, telling you exactly how hard the pedal's being pushed, how hard you're hitting the brakes, when you're shifting, how you're shifting, and if there are any driver coaching to be done, then that's just generally down to the chief race engineer for each driver to just go through. Well, don't shift like that through those corners. I know it might feel quite natural to do that, but you're more likely to cause gearbox damage or something like that. I can see where you're coming from with perhaps a more aggressive style of driving. Are you putting the car through more strain? But as Dan just said, I would be incredibly surprised if Red Bull or Renault weren't just like, if it was the case, you're driving it wrong, Max. But they haven't said that to him, so it's got to be
pure dumb luck.
Yeah. There have been a few Renault power unit failures. All right, fair enough. That most of them are Max Verstappen's.
Or Palmer.
Palmer's had a lot. Kvyat's had a few. Baku. Was it somewhere else where he had one as well? He stopped out on circuit in a free practice session. They red flagged in Monaco, didn't they? For Sainz stopped out on the circuit.
Yeah, and then you got Sainz's engine letting go in Italy in practice as well.
Yeah.
I think the Renaults have been unreliable this season. It's just that Verstappen's
Hulkenberg has been very lucky.
yeah.
Ricciardo didn't have much luck at the start of the
No,
year, but
first 2 or 3 races he suffered with the teething issues.
Yeah. It's just that Verstappen's seem to be happening later on in the weekend compared to the others.
yeah,
Because the Toro Rossos, especially as we've said, they're stopping during practice. Verstappen is managing to get his car through 3 practice sessions and qualifying.
and
then
4 laps of the race.
And then, it lets go on lap 5. So, is he... You could actually turn the question round and say, is he actually doing something in his driving style that makes the engine last longer than the other unreliable Renault engines?
But again, I think if it was anything related to driving style, they would have picked up on it by now.
And also look at how fast Danny Ricciardo cut through the pack in Italy. You know, that was putting the car really through its paces and stretching its legs to probably to maximum, because that we know that Renault engine is probably, well, we know it's not up there with the Ferraris and the Mercedes, but he was by far the fastest man out there in terms of the track that he was eating up at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we spent most of Sunday afternoon, no, the fastest lap for Danny Rick, no, the fastest lap for Danny Rick.
Yeah, and just we know that cars win as slowly as they can, but I mean, just completely.
But to get from 16th to 4th, you can't go as slowly as you can. You've got to turn the wick
and
up.
Cars win as slowly as they can, but they come second as fast as they can.
Exactly, yeah. The amazing overtake on Kimi Raikkonen as well that Ricciardo pulled off. You don't do that by not pushing the car. So that there are other drivers who drive with Renault power units who are pushing that car to the limit.
So it is. I think it is just luck.
Well, look at all of the Mercedes power unit failures in 2016. All of them were Lewis Hamilton's. Every single one. I think there were 7, and they were all Lewis Hamilton's failures.
And he went full Balotelli and why always me?
Yeah.
But again, if there was anything in the driving style,
They would,
Mercedes would have been so motivated to make sure Lewis knew how to fix that problem
absolutely.
that it's got to be
Well,
dumb luck.
It's the team's job to tell the driver if they're not doing something properly.
Yeah. And if they don't appear to be telling him that he's doing something wrong, he's not doing anything wrong.
No.
That is a fair point. One other thing, we've got an appeal from a listener.
Okay.
Finn Wilson. He's going to his first ever Grand Prix this weekend in Singapore. He gets there Thursday night, which unfortunately is after the grid walk. And he wants to know what to do to make the best weekend of it. But he is underage and he's going with his dad, so alcohol isn't an option. Please mention that to Lee. So
The food looks nice.
it does.
Singapore noodles.
Yeah.
In Singapore, do it.
That's got to be the thing. So anyone that's been to the Singapore Grand Prix before, what alcohol-free options to have a great time alongside the race?
I mean, of course, we will have listeners who are completely teetotal and don't drink at all.
Yeah, but what else can Finn do to get the most out of the weekend as well as the race? Lizard spotting.
Yeah, that's where the lizard was on the
That
circuit.
was where the giant
it.
lizard was that Verstappen saw last year. Maybe that broke the car.
Yeah, lizard spotting. Be interesting to see how Finn gets. I'd like to hear back from Finn. Actually, I'm sure he's listening to the podcast.
He does listen. He does listen most of the time.
Yeah.
If he's not going until Thursday,
Well, Finn, I'd like to
And
hear
it'll be
back from
Tuesday at
you.
the earliest.
Just a quick report. Of course, like after you get back, just tell us. Did you choose to stay on European time? And if you did, just tell us how that worked out for you. Because otherwise, I mean, if you choose to change your time zone, you're basically watching the race or going to the circuit, and then going to bed.
Yeah, I know a lot of the teams
Stay on Euro time.
They stay on European time, don't they?
Yeah, which is weird because they're eating dinner at like 3 in the morning, and then they're going to bed, and then they're getting up at like midday, 1 o'clock, and then starting work. Very strange, but I mean, it's for the European TV audience, isn't it? It's, Singapore said that they would do this night race under floodlights for the European audience. That's how they got the race.
Something tells me he won't be staying on European time.
Go on.
I think he's from Australia.
Oh, he's Australian.
Right. Yes.
Oh, I thought he was European.
No. He's
Apologies, Finn. Sorry.
And the other thing, Finn, send us through some photographs. We'll put them up on Facebook and share the experience with everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone that's going to any race, as we say this every time, send us the photos. We will, if you want to share them with the listeners.
Interview a driver or two. Send that through. We'll put it on the podcast.
Yeah, make a sign saying 3 legs, 4 wheels. Anything like that.
We see on the TV extra bonus points for that.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the first sighting of anything 3 legs, 4 wheels on Grand Prix TV coverage.
Yeah,
it's got to happen this season.
We have seen an Isle of Man flag. Manx flag was in front of the podium at Silverstone.
Yes.
But nothing 3 legs, 4 wheels related yet.
So we want to see something 3 legs, 4 wheels at a Grand Prix before the end of the season.
Yeah. And if you are going to a race, get in touch, because you could be the official 3 legs, 4 wheels correspondent for that race. You know, we're going to have quite a few listeners, I believe, attending the US Grand Prix in October. So
there's talk of a bit of a meet-up.
Yeah, there should be.
There's been discussions on the Facebook page about meeting up.
Yeah, do it.
So
seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are going to the US Grand Prix or you're thinking of going, come along and like the Facebook page.
3 legs, 4 wheels tailgate party.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
We'll be there in spirit.
If not in person. Pay for us to go and we'll be there.
Yeah. Are you listening, Circuit of the Americas? I think that is about it for this week. Been a bit of a monster show. Massive thanks to Sean Kelly for coming on again.
As always.
Yep.
Yep. Always great when Sean comes on. We'll be getting another guest on soon, because we've had a couple of people get in touch, and I think there's one former, I'll say, top level driver, not in Formula One, but in another series with that kind of level, that we'll be speaking to soon. We'll be back next week with a review of Singapore. We're recording it on the Sunday, straight after the race. It'll be up on the usual time on Tuesday, and then things will be all over the place for a little bit while I'm on holiday and Lee's on holiday as well.
Yeah. Don't think that leaves you without things, because it won't. We'll sort something out for you.
There will be stuff, and while I'm on holiday, I've found out that I'm only staying 10 minutes away from an FIA-sanctioned kart track with a Ferrari simulator. I'm borrowing Dan's GoPro for the fortnight.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to put the GoPro on the front of the Ferrari simulator and make it look like I'm going a lot faster than I do in a go-kart. Just a slight plug. There is the extra show that you can get for non-F1 related stuff, where if you subscribe to our Patreon from as little as $1 a month, you get another half hour a week. We talk about anything and everything that isn't Formula One related. I think we had Wallabies tonight. We had decorating wet outdoor gigs, dressed in religious clothing.
Yeah.
Waiting for a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
And not liking Grace Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, make of that what you will. So if you go to patreon.com/3legs4wheels, you can find us there.
And I also want to say thank you to all the new people who come along and liked our Facebook page, because we've had quite a few of those as well in the last week or so. So if you want to come along and like the Facebook page, to say, there is a bit of a community going on there, people talking their own sort of opinions on the sport in between podcasts. We're always about on Facebook as well, so feel free to send us a message or post something on the page, and one of us will respond. You've already got our Twitter handles, so get in touch through Twitter. That would be, again, we're pretty good at responding, all of us.
We usually are.
Yeah, we're not too bad. We're not a bad bunch.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even get a data allowance when I'm on holiday, so I'll talk to people while I'm sunning myself. The place I'm staying at's got a swim-up cocktail bar, so don't expect it to make any sense whatsoever. Right, we're going. We'll be back with the live blog for qualifying and the race this weekend.
Yes, we will.
And we'll have another podcast for you next week. So
absolutely.
Until then, when we hope Lee's back with us next week, we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.